I attended the December meeting, and I saw bits of some of the others on the videos.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you wished you would have seen going on in RCAC? I mean, it's a great committee, but is there anything that you would add that you think that maybe there could be doing more of or doing something new?
Yeah, I can't say I got a great view. That the committee I was at, there was only one member in attendance, so maybe
Holiday.
Yeah, it's holiday. It's a tough time of year, but I understand a few. There's a couple of vacancies, and a few of the other meetings
Yeah.
they didn't have a quorum, so it seems like people is the first thing. But then, yeah, I understand they're doing some interesting work, some interesting programs. I think from my knowledge of some of the local communities I've seen, Louisville do a more comprehensive sustainability action plan. And, I think some of the things RCAC is doing here are great, but it would be nice to see that kind of brought under a more strategic vision of what our pathway is and what our targets are and things like that. So that's one thing I would, like to see happen in the future.
Okay. Yeah, good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? Go ahead.
What I want, first and foremost, in an applicant is a commitment to being at the meetings, because, as you witnessed, not much can happen if the members don't make the meetings. So how do you have flexibility? Can you commit to being at the meetings?
Yeah, I can commit to being at quite a few. I do occasionally travel for work, and so it's can't predict exactly how that'll conflict. And actually, I understand this Thursday is a meeting in which I have a work conflict, but I would expect to be at the large majority of them, although I can't commit to 100%. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will wrap up with our final question that we always ask each applicant, and that is, do you have any potentials for conflict of interest? Most people don't, but it's just more of a formality question, like if you had some recycling business on the side or something like that.
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. All right, very good.
Thanks.
We appreciate your interest. Thank you. We'll be
Great.
in touch.
Thank you.
Then we have Kelly Watt, who's applied for ProStack.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for your interest.
Sure.
We appreciate your application. Why don't you start with a little brief introduction on yourself and what made you want to join the committee?
Right. I'm so glad I saw Mike go first. Yeah, so I live right across the street, and I've been a resident of Superior since June of 2015. And it's been interesting to be so physically close in proximity to things that are going on here and yet not be a part of it or have gone to anything. And so, I don't know, I think after this past election, I just wanted to get involved, and ProStack looked like it had several vacancies and seemed like it might be a pretty high need. And I'm really grateful for the parks, and we use the trails all the time, and I don't know, it just seems like a good fit. So,
Great,
yeah.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Yeah, well, I'll ask. Yeah, so again, I'm sorry, did you say you've been to some ProStack meetings?
I have not.
You have
no.
not? Okay. Well, it's a good group.
Yeah.
I am no longer the liaison. Sandy Hammer
Sandy is, yeah.
Yeah, but I was the liaison for the last 6 years, and just a real active group, really engaged with the community. So I would say if you're prepared to do, a good amount of work for the community, then you're probably the right fit.
Yeah, I was looking at the 2017 plan, and I got all excited with all the events. I do a lot of events with my job, so I like events. and getting, kind of getting the word out and getting people to come. And so, yeah, I thought it was a good plan and seemed doable. I don't know the size of the committee. Does that typically vary, or do you normally have the...
That committee is usually, and this is just a strange year, but that committee is usually full.
Okay.
9 members.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
great.
So like I say, it's a very active group. There's usually a lot of people want to be a part of that group. So you're going into a really good group.
All right. It's a cool kid group. Great, great.
Yes. Sandy?
I am not going to compete with ProStack. We did just start a
I heard an
cultural arts and public
group.
spaces.
I heard about that.
So
yeah.
I reserve the right to keep your resume, because part of the cultural arts are, of course, music, right, and performing arts,
Right.
et cetera. So I'd like to if you get a call from that committee or myself personally, just to get your expertise on
I'd love to talk
music
about it.
performance and all that kind of stuff. So
Definitely.
that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, again, thank you for your interest. And last question for you is same as the other one, and that is potentials for conflict of interest. Any that you can think of?
I have no recreational conflicts of interest that I
Okay.
know of.
Excellent.
So, great.
Okay.
Thanks
thank you
for
very much.
a very
We'll be in touch.
enjoyable interview, everyone.
Good.
Thanks.
And finally, we have Bob McCool, who has applied for the Planning Commission vacancy.
Do you really want to know about me, or do you know about me?
A gentleman who needs very little introduction. Friend to many. Welcome.
So, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. McCool, have you attended any meetings for the town of Superior
Only
over the past
100
2 weeks?
Yeah, no.
A few hundred.
But I am. I mean, as you know, I've served on the Planning Commission before, and I'm real excited about this board and the work that's getting done right now. Original Town and this entire Northwest Superior, as you've kind of heard me talk about it, is feeling to me like it needs some representation from this side of town, and I'm very interested in just getting back involved and helping with that.
So you have served a long time on Planning Commission, and you took a respite.
Correct.
What do you believe, what changes, what additions, what ideas do you have for making the Planning Commission maybe a better partner with the town board? Or the town board a better partner with the Planning
Yeah.
Commission?
Well, and it has been a few years, so I don't know what changes have been made in the Planning Commission in that time. I have and this is probably important for you to know, because there are a few things that I'm interested in seeing happen. One, a comprehensive plan review, I think, is pretty important and high on my list. A land use code review, another one, and I've been through a couple of those as well. But I'm interested in the Planning Commission playing just a strong role in the review of development proposals, making sure that they meet comprehensive plan, that they meet land use code, that the reports back are official and they're taken seriously from the Planning Commission. There's a lot of question about that when I was on the commission years ago, but like I said, I suspect a lot has changed since then. I'm very interested in the Planning Commission being more directly involved in comprehensive plan, or I'm sorry, not in concept plan. Thank you, not comprehensive plan. Concept plan reviews. Feel like it's critical for the Planning Commission to be a part of it. Frankly, I feel like those probably ought to come to the Planning Commission with the board in attendance, or at least at minimum, the board they should come with the Planning Commissioner should be attending those comprehensive plan reviews. This meeting tonight felt to me like the Planning Commissioner should be a part of these types of retreats, or there should be participation, because things that were coming up today those of us who are involved and really interested in driving where this community is going should be participating in things like retreats and routine board meetings and things.
Great. Anything else? Okay. Any potentials for conflict of interest?
Nope, my world's still the same as it was before.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. All right. That concludes our interviews. We'll adjourn and be back at, is there anything further for the work session? Okay. We'll adjourn and be back at 7 o'clock. Don't go too far.
meet with these representatives to get to know them a little bit better. They has to do with Rocky Flats and the work that's going on out there and the continued management. And they just really wanted to understand our goals, what our interests were concerns about the management of Rocky Flats. It was a real productive meeting, and we gave them our concerns, and we hope to be able to do these meetings with them on a regular basis or a more regular basis so we can have a good working relationship with them. Along those lines, we also finished our comments for the CERCLA 5-year review, and that is our opportunity as a Stewardship Council member to provide comments on the cleanup remedy at Rocky Flats, and if we feel that it continues to be relevant for current day. And our comments back to them were primarily that we needed to have more dependable water monitoring systems, especially in heavy rainfall, that those water monitoring systems are going to continue to work effectively. And then also, if there is going to be a greenway and a visitor center and the Jefferson Parkway out there, that they will do extensive soil sampling. So those are our comments back to them, that we expect those things to happen. So we'll know, was it next summer, what the new 5-year review is. And then just a couple of comments up at Eldo Park. I'm wondering if there's other opportunities or other things that we can do instead of wood chips in the play areas, because just the lightest wind blows those all over. And we went through that at Superior Elementary when we put a new playground in there. So if there's anything else we can do to prevent that, because there's just as many wood chips out on the new grass as there is in the play area. And then also, I thought we had discussed, I'm certain of it, that one of the key things to having that entryway and that roundabout was to have drop-off and access directly to the school. And there's no access to the school. There's a fence.
I have a
So
well, I have a little insight on that. You want to go? I think we have.
we had identified a location to have access to the school, and the school asked us to not make that entrance in the fence. They have a different location that they had discussed about doing. They're doing some capital improvements this spring, I think, further east. That's where they had said they would like the entrance to be. So it's their fence. We can't just go and
Right.
make an entrance in the fence. So we're waiting. We're ready with the location that we had determined would work, but they've
there's
asked to wait.
there's a gully there. There's the drop-off, there's
Right.
parking, then there's a gully.
Yep.
And then, I guess regardless of where the entrance might be along that fence,
We'll have to
there's going to
do
have to be a
something.
bridge.
Yep.
You can't put a sidewalk down through that, because if there's
No,
heavy
no.
rain.
It would have to be a bridge of some sort.
They're
so-
going to be. They're starting construction there of a new wing on the school.
Okay.
And they said that they just don't want to create a pathway that's going to be through construction. So for
Okay.
safety reasons, they want to get that project done, and then the connection.
Okay,
will be
so
made.
for the record, the plan is still to have access,
Yes.
use that as a drop-off point and have easy access for students?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yes.
That's all, thanks.
Who's next? I'll go. Okay, Mark.
On Thursday, January 5th, I attended the 36th Commuting Solutions Legislative Breakfast. The theme for the legislative breakfast was 2017 is going to be the year of transportation. So this was an overview. The governor was the keynote speaker, and all of the various senators and representatives spoke about the legislative session, which is opening up this week down in Denver, and the $9 billion shortfall that the state has right now with respect to transportation funding. So it was a very interesting presentation. I expect you'll be reading a lot about transportation issues in the news with the opening of the legislative session. It seemed to me that the plan, at least from some of the politicians who were speaking, was hopefully to have a referred measure, which would be coming on the ballot in November of 2017, asking for additional tax revenues to fund the transportation plans that they're going to be doing. So keep an eye for that. I think it'll be an interesting discussion. On Friday, January 6th, I attended Sandy Pennington's First Fridays. A number of trustees were there. A number of residents were there. It was at the new Starbucks at McCaslin and Coal Creek. which was my first time going to the Starbucks there. A number of residents have raised issues regarding snowplows and requests to move their vehicles off the streets during big snowstorms into their driveways to enable the plows to better plow the streets. I think that we can all be better neighbors, so to the extent that you have the ability to move your vehicle off the street during a snowstorm, please try to do that. I think that that will just help the plows navigate all of the streets, and it'll just be in all of our best interests. And specifically with those discussions, there have been a lot of issues raised with respect to Castle Peak and how parked up Castle Peak is. And I think that this is going to be something that we're going to want to talk about on the next Traffic and Safety Committee meeting, is ways to address the safety issues with Castle Peak, because Castle Peak is a major artery through the town. It's a major thoroughfare. People are speeding on it. A lot of kids are traveling on it to get to school. And it's just so densely parked that it's really a safety issue, and it's just a matter of time before there's an accident there. So I'm hopeful that we can do something to address the issues with Castle Peak. So that's what I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Sandy?
On December 14th, I attended the ProStack meeting, our annual holiday meeting, and we are looking forward to hopefully having some new members on ProStack, because there were about 4 or 5 of us there. The work plan was included with this week's packet for review and approval, and ProStack's going to be very busy this year. On December 16th, I participated in a tour at the Rocky Flats National Wildlife Refuge with David Lucas of U.S. Fish and Wildlife and other members of the trustees. It was very informative. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of land, and but we still need to keep very close eye on it to make sure that the soil up there stays where it is. On January 5th, I also attended the 36th Commuting Solutions Legislative Forum. Fortunately, I had a really able-bodied driver that day with great snow tires who got me there, and that was Trustee Pennington. I also attended Trustee Pennington's First Friday on January 6th. I was interested in the fact that residents continue to come to those events with different topics to discuss, and in keeping with one of my campaign promises, the board is going to be moving forward with doing some quarterly forums so that citizens can come and share their ideas, and hopefully they'll be at various times of the day. So I'm really excited we're going to move forward with that. And then on Saturday, January 7th, I met with Beth Barrett, the director of the Louisville Library. I have been, am going to be the new trustee representative to the Louisville Library Board, and I met with Beth to get me up to speed before the first board meeting on Thursday. And that's it.
Thank you. Sandy?
Just to whip through all this, I covered for Trustee Lasis at the OSAC meeting on December 14th. Like ProStack, they finalized their work plan. The work plan is fully published in tonight's packet, and they too will be busy. On the 16th, the tour of Rocky Flats. 19th, West Connect meeting. West Connect is a regional transportation entity that is sort of broadly investigating the completion of the Beltway around the Denver metro area, and has some very specific things they're going to discuss, a lot of which are far south, but it's a very important group. Participated with Chris Hansen in the preparation of the CERCLA comment. I have to say I'm pretty darn proud of that document. It's about 12 pages of analysis. Every 5 years, the Department of Energy gives the municipalities the opportunity to comment on the effectiveness of the remedy. And in this 5-year period was 100-year or 500-year flood, depending on who's doing the measuring, which had the ability to disperse contaminants across Rocky Flats. And I was pleased that we, as Chris already said, we keyed in on the flood and its potential impacts and the deficiencies in the way in which the system was set up to monitor for these abnormal rain events. They don't happen very often, but they're, in my opinion, perhaps the most significant thing that's happened out there weather-wise over the past 10 years since the remedy was put in place in 2006. And as far as I know, we're the only municipality who gave a circle of comment, because I haven't gotten anything from anybody else.
Broomfield.
Did you? Broomfield did?
There's actually a total of 4 that were
Have we
submitted.
gotten them?
Yes, yep, they just came today.
Okay, I'll have to look. Good, but I was discouraged that not more took the time, so I'm glad those have been received. And I'm very proud of the town of Superior for going through the work, because it is a significant amount of work. Also attended the meeting, as Chris said, with DOE regarding Rocky Flats and the functionality of the Stewardship Council. Had First Fridays, that's already been reported on. Today, a contingent of us from the board met with Boulder County and the City of Boulder on transportation-related issues, just sort of opening up a dialogue with them. And has anybody said that we got here tonight at 4 o'clock for a 3-hour retreat? So we've already been here since 4 o'clock, so we're all warmed up and prepped for tonight. And then on the school parcel park, which is yet to be named, I have to say I am so impressed with what an excellent community gathering space that is. We haven't had such a beautiful amenity south of Colton in a long time, and even on the most bitter days, you see people doing the track, you see the dog walking. Unfortunately, Kevin, I'll let you go into the car, and that is that in your report? But it is just such an excellent welcome gathering space. So if you haven't been out there already, please go. You'll be delighted.
We might have to put restrictions on the zip line, because none of the kids would let me on it to use it.
All right, is that all the same?
Mhm.
Okay. Kim?
So a lot of things repetitive. December 16th, attended the tour of the perimeter outside of Rocky Flats. I'll say that nothing that I saw, while it is a beautiful space, nothing that I saw would change my mind and would not be supportive of any initiative that connected any part of Superior to that perimeter area. I like what somebody said, keep the dirt where it is. December 19th, attended our first CAPS meeting, the Cultural Arts meeting. A lot of enthusiasm at that meeting, a lot of good ideas. So I appreciate the opportunity to attend. January 5th, the 36th Community and Legislative Breakfast. Not only was that well attended from a number of local elected, state level representatives, but also some CDOT leadership. So interesting to see them early in the morning after a big snowstorm and see the director of CDOT come in late as a result of the traffic on 36, or perhaps he had some other things. January 6th, the First Fridays at the new Starbucks. Appreciate if you haven't been, please go. It really is very nice. We'll talk about the park, the new El Dorado Park, which is very near my house, so see a lot of activity at that park. Unfortunately, one of the activities we've seen twice are cars driving on the newly sodded grass there. So hopefully it's folks that just haven't gotten quite used to the road, or it's teenagers, or maybe somebody that just got lost in the dark. But discouraging. We've spent a tremendous amount of money and time to make that a priority. So discouraging to see that. I wouldn't want to see big stones or other trees out there. Hopefully, again, it's just kids getting turned around and trying to get back on the road. But there has been damage twice so far. A lot of conversation on the first Friday and just street side conversations, corner conversations around the snowplows and the street parking. I agree with what Mark said. Really, where possible, particularly during a storm, if we could bring our cars into the driveway to allow the snowplows and the drivers to do their job and clear the streets as quickly as possible. Some complaints about the plowing itself. I think compared to a beautiful day in June, there is more snow on the street than a beautiful day in June. But compared to what I saw in Broomfield, Louisville, Boulder, and other areas, I think our town does a marvelous job plowing the streets, particularly the major connectors that were very clear early in the morning, so appreciative of that. I do think there's some work to be done in cul-de-sacs. I think the folks that are in the cul-de-sacs just need to understand there's not a bunch of places for the snow to go. And so there, I believe the town policy is a single lane through the cul-de-sac after the major streets are clear. So please be patient and allow the town to provide that single lane. And if you do see your driveway or vehicles blocked, please let the town know as a result of that single lane that's being plowed. And finally, the snow removal on the trail system, really just amazing. I'm amazed how quick those four-wheelers are out there in the morning, whether or not it's El Dorado Park or really any park. I'm out pretty early walking the dog, and the trails are clear before anybody has had an opportunity to shovel their own sidewalk or driveway. So really just a great job from the town staff shoveling or plowing like the park system, the trail system. That's it. Thank you.
I too went to the Cultural Arts and Public Spaces Committee on 12/19 last year. It's so long ago we can't even remember it. But what was interesting about it is that there were more people there than we have room on the membership, and we hadn't even really officially started it yet, so it's great. And there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to participate in different activities that will come out of that advisory committee. So it's a very fun group. Went to a Dr. Cog, a Denver Regional Council of Government work session last week, Wednesday, and we reviewed our final outcomes associated with the Metro Vision document. It really is kind of a guiding document that guides how money is allocated and spent from the federal government associated mostly with transportation, but also with the AAA, which is the Area Agency for Aging, is also, those funds are also distributed through the Dr. Cog. If anybody's interested in all these documents and what the outcomes and what the recommendations and guidance that is given out of Dr. Cog, in addition to the $170-some million that they distribute, go to the Dr. Cog, Denver Regional Council of Government website, and you get lots of information off of there. First Friday, I went to that as well, and the areas that I heard residents talk to me about at my end of the table, because we're kind of a long, narrow table in the Starbucks, was about transportation and isolating communities. You know, as we develop new roads and streets and accesses and development, we need to make sure that we don't change the character of a particular area because we've added a development several years after the original residences were built. So I think we need to do a better job of thinking about that. And we talked about small area planning, you know, and work groups that could come in, teams of residents that come in and talk about your area of town, you know, and talk about how to make sure that you maintain the character of your area within the rules and the regulations and the code and everything that exists here. So as we go forward, a lot of people there, several people came and said, how do I get more involved and engaged? And we told them about the committees, of course, and we're seeing a lot of people submitting as representatives for the various different committees. But we also know that we'll have this year some more work that we can do where we'll bring residents together to talk about small area planning, whether it's in certain areas of the newer parts of Superior or in areas of the original town and others. So if you have an idea for that, I would encourage you and your neighbors to get together and think about what might be a topic that you would like to talk about or work on for your area. And again, you know, it would be something that we'd think about and work with you on from a board perspective here and also with staff. But there's a lot of work that we can do beyond the committees that we're currently doing, beyond the committees that we currently have, where we can actually work to maintain the vision that we all have for our communities and see what we can do to not isolate or change the character of those communities. And then this morning I went along with the mayor and with Sandy Pennington to Boulder County to talk with Boulder and Boulder County about transportation concerns for the Northwest Corridor up here and the potential connecting from traffic from up this part of the world back down further to the southwest. And that was a very good meeting that we had there as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll go through my announcements. On December 16th, I went on the Rocky Flats tour with a couple of other trustees, and January 5th went to the 36 Commuting Solutions Legislative Breakfast, and then this meeting this morning about with Boulder and Boulder County. And a couple of follow-up items. We mentioned we had a retreat today, so one of the several items we discussed was the idea of non-resident fee for our swimming pools in town. And that was an idea brought to us from out of town to ask us to consider, would you consider allowing out-of-town residents to use our pools? We've reached capacity pretty much with our pools on a lot of summer days, so we had a fairly brief discussion on it and pretty much concluded that it did not need any further discussion. So to those looking for follow-up on the non-resident pool usage, not going to happen. So that issue has been put to rest. And another thing we talked about was additional community and resident engagement. And we're going to be introducing a quarterly meeting with residents, and the first one's going to be early March, and we're going to be doing that in an evening. So an evening format where residents can come and just informally visit with trustees that come. And so we're looking forward to doing that. And so at last meeting, I had announced that I was thinking of doing a quarterly meeting myself, and so I'm going to kind of fold my efforts into the larger effort that the board's doing. So we look forward to engaging with people on that. Last thing I wanted to talk about was in late December, there was an article about our town center, downtown Superior development, and the headline on the paper was, "Delays continue, many wary of timeline." And I just wanted to speak to that a little bit because, like everyone, I would love to be sitting on that plaza area, enjoying a beverage, visiting with friends, and, but the reality is that that's going to take time. It's a very big development, and our job right now is to keep focused on the details, but also to remain positive and really recognize the significant achievements that project has had during 2016. The sports stable opened, and for those that are not familiar, it's really a one-of-a-kind facility offering team sports, dozens of training opportunities for sports, and they employ around 300 people. And they have about another 500 people that work as volunteers there. So it's a tremendous number of people that are involved in day-to-day operations. They're open 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also have 4 new retail shops that were just built, the new Starbucks. We've got a Firehouse Sub coming. There's a T-Mobile that's already open and a 4th store to be announced. We had several approvals during 2016 that are going to be vertical construction starting on this year. Superior's very first hotel, an Element by Westin, is coming. 117 residential units, a medical office building. So yes, there have been some delays, but I'm going to choose to focus on the accomplishments. And there's a quote in the article from Daryl McCool, who most of us know, and she said, and I loved her quote, she said, "What can we do as a town to make it move faster?" And I think she's absolutely right. And I think we as leaders and residents and everyone should be asking ourselves, what can we do to help it move along? So that's my piece on that. Anything further? Let's see, town manager?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Okay, town attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
And town clerk? All right, great. All right, thank you. That's the end of our reports. And now we've got opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone in the public that would like to make comment on consent agenda or non-agenda items, just give a little wave and I'll signal you to come up to the microphone, introduce yourself, and go ahead. Yes.
Hi, I'm Barbara James, and thanks for all the great reports. It's nice to hear how busy you are and how much you care about our little town. Months ago, I had come and spoke to the board about vaping and smoking in the parks, and we have our new park now, and it's a concern, and I just want to know where we stand with it. There's nothing attractive about it. there's nothing attractive about bringing your children to the park and someone is smoking a cigar, a cigarette, or vaping. It's not attractive to our current residents. It's not attractive to anyone that would be touring, whether they be a business or a potential home purchaser. And I just, it's just more litter and pollution, and I just wanted to know what your thoughts were and what we were deciding. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
We're bringing that up tonight. So.
Yeah, that is
It's on the agenda
It's on the agenda
tonight.
tonight.
Yes, that is on the agenda tonight, yes. And you can speak again during that agenda item if you'd like to, but it's certainly fine if you give it here, too. Okay, additional public comment. Yes, sir.
Sorry about that.
Hi, everyone. Jacques Lafleur, 3039 Canna Place. I just have a question about one of the agenda items at the retreat today. So I saw that the topic of home rule was on the agenda today at the retreat. So my question is, I'm wondering what the primary driver, if there is one, for changing the town's legal structure from statutory to home rule. So I'm wondering if it's for financial and taxing purposes, or if it's for land use control purposes, or if it's for ordinance purposes, or maybe some other purpose, or maybe it's just a general topic. So that's my question.
Okay, I'll speak to that just briefly. I think the short answer could be all of the above. It
Okay.
could be all of the above. It is something we've talked about for a period of, well, really years, and we're starting to explore it again. We did discuss it at the retreat, and we're most likely going to have that be the topic on this very first quarterly meeting that we're having in March, to
Okay.
try to start the engagement process with residents, because we really want to start by educating people about what is home rule, why do we care about it, is it something we should do? It's certainly not required. It's certainly not. Some think it could help, and some think it could be a lot of work. And
Right.
so it is. It's a big education process, and we hope to answer all of those questions that you just asked, because they're all very good ones, and appreciate you knowing enough about the topic to know to ask those questions. So we appreciate that.
Okay,
and look
great.
forward to engaging, and hope that you will be there on that meeting in March, and you'd be a perfect one to be in that process.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you very much.
Additional public comment? Any additional public comment? Yes, sir. If you could come on up to the mic, thank you.
Where are we on the
Could you mind
decision-
starting with your
I'm
name?
William Anderson on
Thank you.
1325 South Barrow Court.
Thank you.
Where are we on that decision on the Harris property? Where's that going? It's not an agenda item tonight, I don't think.
It's not an agenda item tonight. We last had a concept plan that was presented.
Yeah, I was there, and I
Yes.
was wondering when you could, I sent some letters to the trustees. but
Yes.
I wondered how that worked policy-wise as far as bringing up.
I'll check with
Public.
staff. Do we have any update from
So
staff?
they had a concept plan, which
Yeah.
we have, to my knowledge, we haven't had any follow-up with the proposed developer. I don't know if they're trying to determine if they're going to move forward or not, but we haven't received any application or anything like that. So right now, it's not moving forward as far as I know.
That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, public comment? And we are going to have the agenda item coming up a little bit later on smoking and vaping, so and we will offer an opportunity for additional public comment during that agenda item if you wish to make any comments on that agenda item. All right, with that, we'll move on now to our presentation section, item number 10. And first up for a presentation is Mr. David Spector. He is the Director of the High Performance Transportation Enterprises with the Colorado Department of Transportation. And he's going to talk to us about the switch from HOV2 to HOV3. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Mayor. Trustees, nice to see you. Let me get set up here. I think I have a dog and pony show. Yes. So we'll set this up. I'm assuming, no?
No, you can use the keyboard, the arrow keys left or right there.
Perfect. Those I can work. Great. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Mayor. My name is David Spector. I'm the director of what we call the High Performance Transportation Enterprise. That's a lot of long words. We are the division of CDOT that focuses on the public-private partnerships. We're the tolling enterprise for the state of Colorado for state highways and interstates. And we also do all of the innovative finance to help our transportation infrastructure. The mayor asked me to come and speak tonight on our transition to HOV3, as you've all no doubt seen on the signs, the overhead signage as well as the variable message signs on the road. As of January 1st, in order to qualify as a carpool now on the express lanes on US 36 and I-25, you must have 3 people in your vehicle, not 2. That's a change, and we'll go talk about why. Let me see if I can. Look, the arrow keys really do work. I'm going to give you a little bit of overview about who we are, why we're here, how we got here. I know the US 36 project has been going on for quite some time, and a lot of trustees are newer and weren't around in 2003 when this process started. So I'd like to go through a little bit of the history, address some of the misconceptions, and then dig into the HOV issue, and absolutely open and available to answer questions. I, too, was at the 36 legislative breakfast that snowy morning. And for the record, Trustee Ryan, Executive Director Batt was out at 4 in the morning in the snow plows, which is part of the reason he was late to that event. So we are trying our best to keep things moving. So we have a diverse and unconnected network is a strong word for it. System would even be stronger, but piecemeal set of express lanes throughout the state. Right now on US 36, you all are familiar with those express lanes. We also have express lanes that currently go from downtown Denver up to about 120th Avenue. Those will be going up to E470, and that construction should finish by about 2018. We have an express lane in the mountains, the Mountain Express Lane, which has been very, very successful. And we're going to be building express lanes down south at C470, probably throughout the heart of the city in Central 70. And then up in Fort Collins to Johnstown, we'll be adding express lanes as well. These express lanes allow for different kinds of modes of traffic. On US 36, it's buses, toll-paying vehicles, and high-occupancy vehicles in some cases. But the express lanes are all different. The Mountain Express Lane, for example, does not allow for HOV traffic for a free exemption. If you want to travel in the Mountain Express Lane, no matter how many people in your car, you have to pay a toll. The same will be true with C470. So the only 2 express lanes that we've got that have the benefit of an HOV exemption are US 36 and I-25 North. More may come online, but there's a lot of factors that determine whether or not you're able to have HOV on your express lane, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Even though the network is diverse, the one thing that is the express lanes share in common is that they are working very well, actually, from an operational perspective. This is what we call a heat map. This is actually from the Mountain Express Lane, and I'll show you some US 36 specific data here in a second. But this is a great visual representation of what express lanes do. Mile marker 228, lower left on the bottom, that says you hit the Mountain Express Lane coming back down into Denver. Mile marker 243 at the end. The graph on the left-hand side is before the express lane, and that's what the lanes used to look like. Red is bad. Everything else is not so bad. Red equated to about 5 to 10 miles per hour. So that's a typical Sunday prior to the opening of the express lane. Now on the right-hand graph, you see our heat map of the express lane, or of that corridor rather, with the express lane open. What I want to note here is that this is travel times in the general purpose lanes, not the express lane. People now are traveling in the Mountain Express Lane at about 45 miles an hour, no stop and go. And it's because of the people who choose to go into the express lane itself that are allowing the people who are traveling in the free general purpose lane to get the benefit of that reduced travel time. So similarly, on US 36, we are seeing some really great travel time savings. Weekday travel times are down and speeds are up. If you look at the middle 5 columns, that's Monday through Friday. The orange bar is now, and the other bars are the years prior. So the top graph is westbound traffic, and those are speeds. If you can see, the orange bars are approximating almost 60 miles per hour, again, in the general purpose lanes. And here on the bottom, you see the travel times have gone down in the general purpose lanes. And that's because of all the folks who are choosing to pay to use the express lane. So the free lanes that people are still traveling in are seeing the benefit from the Lexus lane drivers who are choosing to drive in the express lane. So that's the theme about the express lanes, that they're all actually working very well from an operational perspective for all drivers, especially the ones who are choosing not to pay. I'm going to take a step back, talk about US 36 very briefly and a little bit of the history. As some of you may know, but some of you may not, this was a project that has been going on for about 16 years. The environmental permitting process started on US 36 in 2003. If, like me, you're from here and you remember the old Boulder Turnpike, you know that it's much better today operationally than what it was before. That environmental permitting process took quite a long time. In 2009, there was an initial approval, and then we found a little bit of funding. We got a grant funding that we then spun out into $54 million of a federal loan. We got additional approvals for the additional elements that the communities, the stakeholders up and down the corridor wanted. And then we entered into our contract for our public-private partnership in 2014. The project was delivered in 2015 and is now fully operational in 2016. I go through that history for a couple reasons. One, this is a project that's been a long time in the making, and the decisions about what the configuration of these lanes look like, are we going to have 2 HOV lanes or an HOV lane and a paid toll lane, or all those things, were decisions that were made quite some time ago in the environmental permitting process, and they were made along with the stakeholders in this community. Boulder County, City of Boulder, Town of Superior, Louisville, Westminster, we're all involved in this process. In fact, if you talk with our congressional delegation, Senators Gardner, Representative Polis, one of the things that they find most impressive about this project is the fact that communities as diverse as the Town of Superior, Westminster, and the County of Boulder were all able to get together, come together with a unified plan for the kind of project that they wanted to see in their community. So I think it's a tribute to the town, as well as the entire group along up and down the corridor, that this project actually got completed. One of the things you'll note is that this project did get completed through a delivery method called a public-private partnership. This is the first major public-private partnership in the state, other than the Northwest Parkway. And this is the only one of its kind that was multimodal in nature, with the bikeway, the bus rapid transit, and different choices for drivers along the road. This has become a national model for others. A lot of other states are looking at what we did here on US 36 and using that as something because it's been so successful operationally. Just a couple of misconceptions that I was asked to address that I just want to clear up. I know there's been a lot of editorials, both in the camera and the Post. I think, Mayor, you identified a letter, a headline in the paper. If we had to respond to all the headlines, I'd never stop talking. So I'll keep it brief, but I do want to mention a couple of things. The US 36 project would not be here today. We'd still all be traveling on the old Boulder Turnpike had it not been for the P3, the public-private partnership delivery method. This is a project that CDOT couldn't fund because of that shortfall that you identified, Trustee, is it LACIS? Because of that shortfall in funding that you identified, because we don't have a real transportation funding stream coming from the General Assembly, there was not enough money to complete this project until 2035. The public-private partnership model allowed this project to be delivered 20 years early. It accelerated the delivery of that project. And I know that there's a myth out there that the state footed the bill and the private partner is going to get off scot-free with all the tolls. It's actually not accurate. The private partner, Plenary Roads Denver, put up about $120 million of our almost $500 million project cost. That's about 25% of the project cost. That's their own equity, their own debt. So the private partner is a true partner in this agreement with the state of Colorado and with the communities up and down the corridor. They do set the toll rates, and they get the benefits of the tolls if tolls are higher than they expect, which then go back into the community. We have provisions in the document that go for revenue sharing if the tolls are going well. There's a lot of traffic. Those revenues come back through CDOT and then get spread out back into the communities along the corridor. They also take the toll risk. If growth slows and toll rates don't go up and there's not enough traffic in the lanes, the private partner bears that risk. Finally, I just want to talk about HOV3 here. That's part of this whole delivery method and model. HOV3 and the decision to go from HOV2 to HOV3 was a decision that was made back in 2013, 4 years ago. It was made in part for financial reasons, which we'll talk about, but also for congestion management. And it was made with the head nod of the core stakeholders in the community and everyone involved, in part because we knew that we needed to have a project, and this project worked financially, both from a congestion standpoint and a financial standpoint, with HOV going to HOV3. So those are a few of those misconceptions, and I'll go back to our slides here. You've had this up so you can see it, but the bottom line is that graph that I showed you earlier is showing anywhere from a 20 to a 30% travel time savings on the corridor from prior to construction. RTD ridership is up 45%. That's amazing considering the ridership in this corridor from before. People are really taking to the Flatiron Flyer. So operationally, it's been a really successful project. We're very proud of it, but we know that the transition to HOV3 is a tough one for a lot of people, and we're not immune to that. So let me start from the background, and then we'll dig in. This is what you need in order to travel HOV on any of our HOV express lanes. It's called a switchable transponder. It allows the driver to self-declare, I have 3 people in my car, I'm HOV, or I want to pay a toll. I have to go on E470 to get to the airport. I really want to hit Northwest Parkway to get up to I-25 faster, and I can then choose to pay a toll. Maybe I need to pick my kids up from daycare. I don't have my 3 people in the car. Hop into the express lane. I can make sure I get there on time. So we give our customers and our commuters choice with this. We've distributed over 115,000 of these so far. That's about 8% of all of the transponders we've got. We've got a sticker transponder that just allows you to pay, and if you're not using an HOV option. And that's a pretty high penetration rate for HOV. So there's a lot of people who choose to have the option to go HOV sometimes and to pay a toll sometimes. I've been doing this presentation to a lot of folks, Optimist clubs, Rotary clubs, city councils all over the state, and I haven't changed that not yet to say HOV came on January 1st. It is now a requirement that HOV3, you have 3 people in your car to be considered a carpool. We talked about it. It's only on US 36 and I-25. Those are the only 2 corridors that right now get the benefit of the HOV exemption, and they're the only people to which that HOV3 number applies. And there's 2 reasons we did it. We talked a little bit about the financial piece. This deal was premised on the fact that we needed to have a deal that could pay for it. Our loan that we borrowed from the federal government, as well as all of the private partners piece of it, is premised on the fact that we go to HOV3. It also ensures trip reliability. One thing I'll note here, we work with rating agencies, Fitch, Standard & Poor's. They rate managed lanes all over the country, and the number one thing they look at when they are looking at a managed lanes transaction, when they're rating that deal, is what is your free vehicle policy. And that is what allows you to get a good credit rating or no credit rating. C470 I mentioned earlier, they're not going to have HOV, and that's because it wasn't financially feasible on that transaction. To have an ability to have HOV vehicles go for free down on C470 would have cost that project anywhere from $40 to $100 million over the course of the 30-year deal. And so it doesn't work for every corridor, unfortunately. We wish it could, but sometimes it's just not financially feasible in an environment where we don't have the transportation funding that we need to actually build the projects without borrowing money. We've heard a lot about HOV. We know it's not popular. We worked with the state legislature at the General Assembly last year on a compromise solution. The compromise allows motorcycles now to go for free without a sticker. They've always been able to go for free. They had to get a sticker to tell us they were going for free. That is no longer the case. And we have agreed to reimburse folks who are carpooling all the time the cost of their transponder as well as the cost of the processing fee that our back service provider uses. We're trying to balance 2 things here. We're trying to balance the cost of the infrastructure, which we're paying off, and we're trying to balance the policy that's promoting more people on the road and fewer vehicles. And so we have reimbursed already those people who fit our criteria of only carpooling all the time with that switchable transponder. It's over 7,000 drivers. We'll continue to do that going forward. This is a lot of words about that rebate and the transponders, but the bottom line is starting in March, when we have that tech fix go live, you'll be able to call up get your account, and then you can, if you only carpool ever all the time, you'll never have to pay for anything having to do with that transponder. Should you choose one day to need to be able to use it on E470 or the Mountain Express lane, you're more than welcome to use it. You can have that choice, and then we'll just bill you for the cost of the transponder, which is something that all other switchable transponder users are getting billed as well. I'll stop here for a second and entertain questions from the council or from the trustees. You've been a very quiet panel today. I'll talk about a little bit what we're doing to help ease this transition after this, but I wanted to make sure that I don't go too quickly through the slides and allow you to ask any questions that you may have.
So you answered one of my questions. I just want to be clear that one of the primary reasons to implement HOV3 is because it works your financial model. That's right?
Yeah, there's two primary reasons. One is financial, and one is for congestion relief. We borrow money now. HPTE sometimes borrows. Sometimes we use a public-private partnership. But we're borrowing money to help pay for the infrastructure that we're building. It's not unlike if you were building a new home, you're getting a construction loan, borrowing that money up front. We have to be able to pay those loans back, and we pay those loans back with toll revenues. So it's the toll-paying vehicles that help pay those loans back. And so a free vehicle policy that has more free vehicles reduces the amount of money that we're able to use to pay back for the infrastructure that's been built.
Okay, so in cars that have two people in them will pay the same toll as someone with just one?
That's correct.
Okay, and then the other question that came up, I never thought about this, but what are you saying to all the people that purchase those fuel-efficient cars, smart cars, smaller cars that really you can't comfortably fit more than two people in, that bought them for that specific reason? Now you're saying, sorry, you can't. You have to go in with the traffic. You can't be in this free lane anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately, Trustee Hansen, I've been having to say I'm sorry a lot during my tour of delivering this bad news. You know, people like to shoot the messenger, and we are saying sorry to those folks. It is true. If you have a two-seat vehicle, a smart car, Car2Go, you're a Mazda Miata person, Corvette, two-seat vehicles don't have an ability to have three people in the car. And so they don't have an ability to be a three-person carpool and go for free in the express lanes. They can still choose to go for free in the general purpose lanes, which are now moving at anywhere from 10 to 15 miles an hour faster than before. And they can choose to pay in the express lanes if they like.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Comments more than questions. First, the customer service line around obtaining the transponders, outstanding. Really just outstanding. I mean, I've had to call, I take 470 and 36, and I've had to call a number of times, and I always get a little anxious before calling. And it's a 2-minute phone call, and I'm never, so great job there.
That's great to hear.
Second,
I appreciate that feedback.
Thank you. You're welcome. Second, since you brought up the Mountain Express lane, I tried out you called it the Lexus lane on Saturday afternoon, driving back from the mountains when I thought I'd hit a little bit of traffic. Not safe. It was not plowed as well as the other two lanes. I was really anxious about it. I had somebody behind me that thought they were just entitled to drive 70 miles an hour, and I didn't feel it was safe. Eventually, this was Saturday, probably about 1:30, eventually came upon an accident in that lane. That accident didn't surprise me at all. Fortunately, it didn't look like anybody was hurt. So since I have the opportunity to give this comment right here, if you're going to charge folks for that lane should either be closed or plowed at least as well as the other two lanes. Probably better since people feel entitled to go faster. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trustee Ryan. May I just... I appreciate the feedback, appreciate the good feedback, and appreciate the constructive feedback. That Mountain Express lane is narrower. It's an 11-foot lane rather than a 12-foot lane. And it's the first corridor in the country to be operating as it is. It's a shoulder most of the time for breakdown purposes. We open it up to try and ease that congestion, but it can be very harrowing. My wife, when she sits next to me and I'm driving through there at 65 miles an hour, is gripping the...
Yeah, you would have to pay me to take that lane again. I will not pay to drive that lane.
That's fair feedback. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Had a comment from a resident on Friday when we had heavy snow on the ground that the bikeway was plowed well for some area around Louisville, but as it approached Boulder, it was totally snowed again, snow-packed again. Who is responsible for maintaining and plowing that bike path?
So the bikeway maintenance transfers, and we're in the middle of the transfer, but the bikeway maintenance will transfer to the local jurisdictions if it hasn't already, it will be soon. It may have been that it got stuck in that sort of nebulous period, but the maintenance, CDOT doesn't do bikeway maintenance. We're not really good at it, so it's better if we don't. So we transfer that obligation to others who are better at it. So, and I can get back to you on exactly who it is for this
So is that
part of this
Boulder
corridor.
County right there where Louisville
It's
ends?
all the agencies, so it's the city of Boulder, Boulder County, Town of Superior, City of Louisville, Broomfield.
You mean
All-
anybody can do it, or
No,
who
we all
has to
have
do
a
it?
specific within our incorporated limits that we do.
So who checks whether or not you all have done your job?
We ain't worried about ours.
The
Okay.
citizens.
Okay. And then, this is a Sandy question. What happens when I'm, have HOV on and I'm riding in the toll lane and it's just me?
Mayor
How
Pro Tem
bad am I in
Pennington, are
trouble?
you intentionally doing that, or is that an accident on your
No,
part?
because
It's on public TV, that's great.
Yeah, because I'm sure I'm not the only one. I've run into a lot of people, so I'll take the hit for all of those of us who forget to flip the stupid thing over to toll. So what functionally happens?
So the US 36 express lanes, I-25 North, have a reader that shows whether you're in HOV mode or toll mode. And law enforcement is out there on the road. And when you go through in HOV mode, it blips a certain color. And when you go through in toll mode, the reader blips a certain color. And if there was a Colorado State Patrol there when you accidentally forgot to go in that road,
They would
that State
stop
Patrol
you.
person could pull you over. It's up to a $250 fine
Okay.
if you're caught for an HOV violation.
That's good to reinforce. That'll make me think about it a little bit more. Okay, good.
So I think I heard you say that if we're never going to be three-person HOV or hot lane driver, can I use my sticker that I use now for Northwest Parkway and get to
Absolutely.
the airport?
Yep.
Okay.
That sticker, we have two different types of transponders. The sticker, where you get to the reduced toll rate, right, not the license plate toll rate, but you
Right.
pay every time you use it. So if you're never going to be HOV, then that's a great option for you because you don't have to get the switchable clunky, it is clunky, doohickey that you put in your windshield. You just get that tiny little sticker. You never have to worry about it. If you are going to be HOV and you think, I'm going to be HOV enough that I want, it's $15, and it gives you the optionality to be able to choose to do that when you like.
But you don't have to pay extra, or you don't have to pay the full rate if you use that Northwest Parkway sticker.
That's correct. So
Right.
both of our transponders, both the switchable transponder and the sticker, they will give you the reduced, we call it the electronic rate, but the reduced rate. If you travel through any of our express lanes, you may, without a sticker or a transponder, we'll charge you the license plate toll rate, which is a higher rate because it involves the processing fees of looking at your license plate and then sending you the bill.
Right. I just want to make that clear because I think some people thought they had to have that, even though they weren't going to be driving hot three to a
And
lane.
as Trustee Ryan mentioned, our customer service team is really good. They'll walk you through that. If you call and say, hey, I'm going to be driving like this, I'm carpooling all the time, or I think I might carpool once in a while, they'll walk you through what the best option is for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further?
Okay, I'm conscious of time. I just want to let the residents of Superior know what we're trying to do and what they can do to make this easier on them. We do know this switch is not ideal. We've heard a lot about it. We're trying to make it as easy as possible, knowing that. So we have identified, these are all the options. People know you can ride the bus, you can pay a toll. We've been doing a lot of public outreach. Hopefully you've seen it. What you can do, though, is you can go to Dr. Cog's Way to Go program that will help you find a three-person carpool. We're partnering with Lyft, the ride-sharing company, and soon with Uber. Lyft is they have a carpool option. It's called Lyft Line. It's sort of like Uber's pool option. And so if you want to ride up and down the corridor in a Lyft, you can get another person to ride with you, and then you can all use the express lane for free. You'll still pay for your Lyft, but you'll be going without a toll. We've been partnering with RTD. 36 Commuting Solutions that a lot of the trustees are familiar with continues to offer incentives for folks if they're going to choose to carpool. And then we've been also reaching out with a number of other folks. City and County of Denver has an app that we're trying to get integrated to so that you can find people to carpool and then get to where you want to go. So we're trying to do as much as we can to help people get into that third person, find that third person for their carpool. This is our website. You can go there to look to answer any and all of your questions. You can also call our customer service number. I'm always happy. I'll leave some business cards here. Always happy to take questions and answer any questions that you might have. I don't always have all the answers, but I can find them for you. And then I'm available for any additional questions the trustees have.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
David, we appreciate your time. Thank you for
very
coming out. All right, our next presentation is from Heather Craycraft, Superior Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening. Heather Craycraft with the Superior Chamber of Commerce. And at this time of year, it's always a fun time of year, as you probably notice in many different organizations that you're part of, to review and look at the year past and kind of look forward to the year ahead. So I have the pleasure of just announcing some of our accomplishments for the Chamber of Commerce for 2016, similar to what I announced last year, but kind of in the numbers game, which many of you do appreciate. But we were very proud to partner with the town for another Mayor and Manager State of Superior address, which will be hosted again. Thank you to both the town manager and the mayor for your time, again in April. We hosted 7 ribbon cuttings locally with business owners. We hosted 91 specialty business group meetings throughout the year, so that's from everyone operating a solopreneur business to someone who's part of a larger corporation that might need help in the areas of their business that they take care of. We hosted 45 networking events throughout the year. We obviously partner with many of you who attended all of the fantastic town events and supported Arbor Day, 4th of July, and Chili Fest with a great bang. Always enjoy those. We also hosted our largest Skate with Santa just this past December I think it's been over 11 or 12 years now that we've been doing that event. This was the largest and definitely best received event thanks to the sports stable at Superior. We are very excited. We're entering our 19th year as an organization in this town that has a lot of history. The Chamber is young in that history, but we are excited to be in the 19th year in our partnerships with all the local business owners. So we are currently at 250 members and are in the process of putting together the directory for the upcoming year. So if anyone here or is watching from home or will watch in the future, our memberships are a great partnership with the community to help us with both the residents and the businesses in this area. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. It was a great year, and appreciate all that you do. All right, next is our consent agenda, item number 11. We've pulled items C and D, so do we have a motion to approve consent agenda items A, B, E, and F?
Yep, so moved.
Okay, motion by Trustee Henson, second by Trustee Dozell. All those in favor? Okay, passes unanimous. Thank you. And 11C, the proclamation in support of January as Radon Action Month.
The one revision to this would be to remove the second whereas clause that reads, radon is likely leading environmental cause of cancer mortality in the U.S. and the 8th leading cause of cancer mortality overall.
So I instigated that. It's a stat. I was unable to source the stat from any peer-reviewed journal. And so without a source from a peer-reviewed journal, I think it's still a meaningful proclamation that I'm fully supportive of. Just thought we should eliminate it.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion to approve it with that revision?
Approve as amended.
Motion to approve as amended without the second whereas.
Okay. Motion by Trustee Ryan, second by Trustee Hanson. All those in favor? Okay, passes unanimous. Thank you. Next is 11D, adoption of resolutions regarding public posting locations for the town Superior Urban Renewal Authority, Superior McCaslin Interchange Metropolitan District, and Superior Metropolitan District Number 1.
So this is a state requirement to post. There was Trustee Dozell had pointed out to me that there's some, and I agree, kind of confusing wording in the SMD1 and SMID resolutions. We list 206 West Coal Creek Drive, which is the old firehouse here in original town, but it says Parks and Recreation Office. So when we say Parks and Recreation Office, most people think of the office across the street. So we want to remove reference to the Parks and Recreation Office and just leave the address in both of those.
Okay.
So Kendra, we went over this several years back. Why is it we cannot count as public notice our webpage?
Because we're not home. Because we're not home rule.
Okay.
And yet
Thought I
another
would throw that
reason.
in there, don't you?
Okay,
Add that to
thank
the
you.
Add that to the, yeah, the
Yeah,
list.
Add that to the list.
to the list.
So Matt, functionally, do we always have all these notices on the webpage?
Yes.
So how about every time there is a public notice put out? For example, we talked about First Fridays. Is that still just in the
Yes.
thing?
Uh-huh.
And,
I'm sorry, the first two resolutions only talk about the glass over
Right.
there,
But
not
I'm-
these other
so
locations.
even though the requirement is the glass, do we also have them on the website is my
Yes.
question.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So
Always.
do we take that to other things we put in the glass case, like First Fridays?
Mhm.
Are they on the website as well?
Not typically, no.
Should we?
We can.
Yeah, I would say anything we put out there, we should put on the website.
We can do that.
How does anybody else feel?
I think that makes sense because most people have more ready access to their computer glass than the glass in front of town hall. So
That's right.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Good call.
Okay.
I'll just ask a
Okay.
question about that firehouse. I thought it was more appropriate to have it on the Parks and Rec door than on the old firehouse. Is it because it has to be within so many feet of the SMID or the SMD1 location? I mean, because I thought that was a good place to put it, was on the Parks and Rec door, rather than on the door of the old firehouse.
It's up to you. Whichever you all prefer. I'm not sure why the preference was for the firehouse versus the, but.
I'm sorry. That building will be going away at some point this year, so I didn't want to list that location, since it may not
Okay.
be there at
If-
some point this year.
And just legally, if it does go away, if you'd rather keep it there for now, and it does go away, we would just have to adopt a new resolution stating that this posting place has gone away, we're moving it to blank, so.
So is it necessary to have that location and town hall? I mean, you have to have
For
multiple.
those two, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my understanding is we have to have 3 postings.
We do, for the districts, we have to have 3.
So that's why we have this situation, that we have to have 3 postings. So one is actually a piece of paper, post board,
Right.
by the roundabout in the marketplace where the horses are. So that's a real easy place to look at those things and read that posting, I think, too. That's a facetious comment. And,
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah. And so when I go over and pet my horse, and I can go look at that. But this one that's on the firehouse, I just think we should find another place that we could probably post it. But I thought the Parks and Rec door was a good place, because some people do actually go in there. And then that was going to be my follow-up question, was what do we do when the parks people move over to the sports stable? And what will we do with that building? That's probably for another night to discuss that, but I do want to ask that question. What do we do there?
Put it on the glass at Sports Stable, and it could seen by more people than all the others combined.
Well, could we do that, though? Are we close enough?
Are we within, is it within a mile?
Within a mile?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, we're within a mile.
Then yes. So if you notice on this resolution, legally, technically, we're supposed to post it 3 times in exactly the same place because there's only one area that's actually within the district. So what we've done in this resolution, if you go to the last whereas clause, is basically said, we're going to post it once in that location because it would be kind of silly to post it 3 times in the same location, and then we're going to pick 2 other locations within the vicinity of the boundaries of the district to help provide better public notice. So that's how this came about. In most districts, the boundaries are bigger, and you have to pick 3 different locations in that district. But because the boundaries of this district are the roundabout, that's what we have. So, we can certainly change that to the sports stable if we want to. So really, the second two locations are really up to the board. The first location, I would say we need to keep it. I'm sorry. The first two locations are up to the board. It must be posted in the roundabout. So the other two, which are town hall and then either the Parks and Rec office or the fire station, those are entirely up to the board.
Do we want people to see them?
Yes.
Because I don't think anyone's going to look at them at the sports stable. I mean, where would you put it there? I don't think anyone, the million people that are going through there are more people from out of town than anywhere else. So, I mean, what about in the park? Is there a place to, like, put something there that, because there's going to be a lot of people going to the park, and I'm sure more people go to the park than they would the roundabout, and,
Founders Park?
yeah,
Sure, yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Something similar to what we do at the roundabout.
yeah. So if we want people to see it,
Yeah.
they're more likely to see it in the park than they would at the Parks and Rec Department or the roundabout.
Or the door of the old firehouse.
Or the door of their old firehouse. I don't think anyone would think to look there.
I like the park suggestion.
Yep.
It's entirely up to you.
Let's do the park. Founders Park.
So it would just be a duplicate of what we're posting already in the roundabout
Yes.
where the horses are, and then put it in the park. I think that's a good idea. Better than posting it on a door that no one goes through. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Since I do the posting, where at the roundabout?
Be in the park.
At the, I'm sorry, Founders Park.
By the sign.
By the one.
Huh? By which sign?
Isn't there a sign at Fourth and Coal Creek that
Right.
kind of identifies the park itself, maybe?
Catty
maybe-
corner to Daryl McCool's.
Or is there, you know, at Williams Field, there's a case where we actually put what events are going on there. We can open up the glass, post an event. Isn't there something like that at Founders Park where you can actually post events that are going on? If someone's got the field reserved, this is who's got it reserved, or?
Check.
I think so.
Okay.
I don't think there is one.
So maybe we'll do the Fourth and Coal Creek. There's a sign by the sign, yeah.
And you're just identifying Founders Park, so if that doesn't work, we can always move.
Right.
We can change this. It just involves a new resolution, so it's
Okay.
easy to do if we need to.
Okay.
And is this posting every time we have, it's only when we have some business to entertain, but it's not every meeting?
It's only when we open SMD 1 and SNP.
Right.
So if they're on the agenda, then it gets posted.
Only if they're on the agenda, but not every time, right, okay. So it's probably 4 to 6 times a year. Okay.
Okay, good. Are we, so we're good with that? Does someone like to make a motion to approve that as amended?
Do we have to do each resolution separately?
We have to go through each one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll start with the first one. I make a motion, Town of Superior Resolution Number R-1, Series 2017, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior establishing a designated public place for the posting of meeting notices.
Okay, motion by trustee Dazell, second by trustee Hanson. All those in favor? Passes unanimous.
Let me do the second one.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a motion, Superior Urban Renewal Authority Resolution Number Sura-1, Series 2017, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Superior Urban Renewal Authority establishing a designated public place for the posting of meeting notices.
Okay, motion by trustee Hanson, second by trustee Dazell. All those in favor? Trustee Ryan, are you, okay. That passes unanimous. Thank you.
I'll make a motion for the Superior McCaslin Metropolitan Interchange District Resolution Number SMID-1, Series 2017, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Superior McCaslin Interchange Metropolitan District designating regular meeting location and time and the public places for posting meeting notices. Those 3 locations will be the Town of Superior, the roundabout, and also a Founders Park.
Okay, motion by trustee Dazell, second by trustee Ryan. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you.
I'll read the last one. I'd like to make a motion of Superior Metropolitan District Number 1, Resolution Number SMD 1-1, Series 2017, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 designating regular meeting location and the time and the public places for posting meeting notices as amended.
Motion by trustee Hanson, second by trustee Dozell. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. All right, that takes care of those. All right, next on our agenda is item number 12, adoption of an ordinance repealing and reenacting Article 3 of Chapter 7 of the Superior Municipal Code concerning smoking.
Thank you, Mayor. Currently, smoking is not allowed in public buildings or other indoor establishments such as restaurants, grocery stores, etc. The proposed ordinance would make several revisions to Chapter 7 and Article 3 of the Superior Municipal Code to add and revise definitions related to smoking, vaping, and to amend the general smoking restrictions to identify specific outdoor locations, including town parks and open space areas where smoking and vaping would be prohibited. The ordinance also details where smoking would be permitted, updates sign requirements, and clarifies restrictions related to sale to minors and the penalty provisions. Kendrick Carberry drafted the ordinance, is here for questions. Sergeant Chamberlain was here and ran out of the room, so if we have questions for him, we'll have to do follow-up on that. Provided a red line version for the board's review, as well as a clean and a confidential memo from the attorney.
Okay, thank you. All right, questions, comments from the board?
Question.
Yes.
This puts me in a very difficult position. I had a question for Sergeant Chamberlain about enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So without Sergeant Chamberlain here, I'm struggling.
Yes, ma'am.
Why it is, from a legal enforcement issue, I wanted to hear directly from Sergeant Chamberlain. So.
Can we get him back here? Where did he go? Is he out in a call?
It looked like an
There were like
It was
5
an emergency.
big
Yes.
lights and everything went by, and they all ran out, so
Okay.
emergency vehicles went by.
I don't have anything from him, so I don't know.
I actually have quite a few things, but I don't want to go now. But I do want to ask you, why is marijuana expressly excluded from this?
Marijuana is subject to different restrictions typically, but where are you talking, can you point me
Well,
directly to your?
everything says tobacco, tobacco, tobacco.
Yeah.
It's covered already in our.
So would it be treated like tobacco or like alcohol? So could somebody get a permit to have a party in Purple Park and say they want to smoke marijuana there?
No, no.
Okay.
So it's just that we have marijuana regulated in a different location.
Right.
The state treats tobacco and marijuana differently, and we have maintained that distinction.
And under state law, you're not allowed to use marijuana in public
That's correct.
under current state law.
Yeah, not allowed to, well, yeah. It's very complicated, but yes.
Okay.
So I have just a clarification, and I read through your revised ordinance. So we took out a lot of stuff that was, I like that you struck through a lot of.
It's trying to simplify.
Simplify it. So when I was going through it, then I got down to minors and the penalty for providing, but you only talk about tobacco products and you remove nicotine products. And so that, so then, but under smoking, it's defined as all of the tobacco products and blah, 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 plus the addition of activation electronic device, activation electronic, this e-cigarette. So smoking is not allowed, which includes activation electronic e-cigarettes or vaping, so is not allowed, because that's defined in smoking.
Right.
But there's not a penalty for minors found smoking electronic cigarettes unless there's tobacco involved in that e-cigarette.
That's not correct.
Well, it's not, the e-cigarettes are not defined in the
Which,
minors under
document are you on?
section 7.3.50.
I hear what you're saying. Let me just take a quick look at this.
Under the ordinance, the red line, if you go to section 7.3.50, you've added tobacco products under the penalties for minors, but you removed nicotine products, which e-cigarettes have nicotine in them in many cases, but not every case.
Okay.
But then tobacco products, so I'm just trying to understand if there's
Sure.
a penalty for minors found using e-cigarettes as opposed to tobacco products.
Just give me 1 second.
And it was in section 7.3.50.
A.
Was that
A.
A? A,
Letter A.
okay.
So what you're asking is if it's unlawful for a minor to possess an e-cigarette, basically, that does not.
The ordinance clearly will state that you cannot smoke an e-cigarette in public spaces if we approve it, but it does not indicate whether that's a
But if
penalty for minors to
But-
be in possession of anything other than tobacco products.
Right, but tobacco product includes tobacco in an electronic smoking device.
Does it say that in here? I couldn't
Yes.
find it. Okay,
And the
maybe I missed it.
definition of smoking contemplates.
Yeah, the smoking, there's.
Well, no, but
clear-
it says burning of a lighted cigarette, and then it goes on to say, or the possession of any lighted cigarette, cigar, pipe, or activated electronic smoking device regardless of its composition.
Right,
So
that's I'm
that,
not
to me,
questioning.
means that the electronic cigarette, doesn't matter what's in it.
Right, but that's not, go down to the minors, section 7.3.50, it does not include.
But tobacco products, if you go to the definition of tobacco products, near the end, it says electronic smoking device or otherwise. So,
Well, I'm just trying to match them up.
oh wait, hold
And
on.
I,
Prepared in such a manner as to be suitable for chewing. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, I'm just sorry, we have to keep going back and forth here. So we could say it is unlawful for a minor to possess, consume, or use a tobacco product in the town, and we would add to that the electronic smoking device. But the problem is do we want to allow minors to use electronic smoking devices that do not have tobacco in them?
therein lies that's what you've
Sure.
done with this ordinance. You've allowed minors to use it as long as
Right.
it does not include nicotine or tobacco products.
Exactly. So I think that's the question, the policy
That
question.
is
do you
exactly
wanna
the
go-
question.
Yes, do you want to
There's
go
a-
any further? Sorry, it took me a while to catch up
I
to that,
don't,
but yeah.
I don't think I think the point is you don't want to see it, and by looking at it, you can't tell what's what. So I would say no. No, you don't want them.
What do you mean you don't want to see it?
Well, in the smoke, it says no smoking is allowed, including electronic cigarettes. But then when you go down to penalties for minors, it does not include.
Right, so minors, yes, minors are treated a little bit differently because what we're trying to, the policy is we're trying to keep tobacco away from minors.
Right.
Then there's a separate policy of trying to keep vaping out of parks.
Yeah.
So that's everybody. You know what I'm saying? So, but the policy with minors is to keep tobacco products out of their hands all the time.
Right.
So it's a little bit different policy, I think. So if we want to make the policy, because there are electronic smoking devices that don't need to have nicotine or tobacco in them. So the question is whether you want to prevent minors from having an electronic smoking device that doesn't include necessarily nicotine, tobacco, or marijuana.
Let me ask another clarifying question, please. So section 7.3.50, which is page 8 of 9 on our ordinance here, I'm looking at the redlined version, says minors, period. And then it goes on to say the penalties unlawful for furnishing a minor tobacco products.
Right.
But it does not say anything about, and so I'm saying that we have two separate issues that we're dealing with in this ordinance, and I think we need to make clear of that we're not saying it's unlawful for a minor to have an e-cigarette that does not include a tobacco aspect.
That's correct.
And we won't find someone who's smoking that just where they can, because we're saying you can't smoke it now in public spaces and
Exactly.
parks. But we're not saying that we're, as a town, saying you cannot, as a youth, smoke vape as long as that does not include tobacco products in it.
Exactly.
But we're also then going back at the beginning and saying no vaping of any kind.
Regardless of your age.
Regardless of your age, regardless of whether it's a tobacco or just a flavored. No vaping of
In
any
parks.
kind in the parks.
Right, exactly.
So I just want to make that clear because we have two separate things that we're kind of talking about
That's
here.
true.
Okay,
That's true, because in theory, a minor's not even supposed to have tobacco in their own home.
correct, and no adult should be giving it to them.
Exactly,
in
no matter
any-
where they're going to use it.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Let's start at the beginning here. Why are we doing this whole ordinance? What have we experienced that we can document in our parks? We say parks and open spaces. So what have we experienced? What's the problem?
This is not coming from staff. This was something the board had discussed earlier and asked for
Right.
a draft ordinance to be brought forward for your review.
Okay, so I'm going to speak. There are two of us up here who have older children, and I'm going to speak as a mother of 3 older sons. And you've heard me say it before. It is so easy for teenagers to run afoul of the law in places where, in ways in which it can dramatically influence their lives. And I believe that the biggest impact of the smoking ordinance in terms of potential big ramifications is on teenagers. And I believe this ordinance as written may allow multiple penalties for the same string of events. You know how when you read in the newspaper somebody's been arrested and 18 charges are thrown at him? This is what's going to happen here, not 18, but if they go to the grocery store and they have a fake driver's license that says they're 18 and they've already completed the transaction before the clerk notices, they potentially could be fined for false ID and then for possession. And then if they've happened to, they go out to the park and whatnot, they could be fined for use and for up to $4.95 a crack. Now, I'm all for educating teenagers. I'm all for holding them responsible for, in big ways, for potentially deadly behavior, et cetera, but I am not in favor of onerous things, which I think this has the potential to be, that have negative impacts on their lives and their potential to qualify for honor society and college scholarships and stuff if they have to report these sorts of offenses. And so let me give you a couple of ways in specific text. Going back to Rita's same exact 7-350 in this possession thing. Let's say we legitimately want to not have smoke and we don't want to have vapors in our parks. If I've got a teenager who's in possession of a cigarette from mom's cigarettes or their own somehow illegally acquired cigarette and they've got it in their pockets, they're choosing not to do it. I don't necessarily want that teenager to be able to be charged for having possession. And then if he's charged a fee up to $4.95 is, to me, the absolute wrong penalty I want to give to any teenager who has made a bad decision. One, mom and dad will probably be paying the $4.95 or the up to $4.95 because $4.95 is onerous. Teen can probably pay $40, but he can't pay $4.95. So if I were going to put together a penalty structure, I would actually try to keep it out of the courts. I would make them do 40 hours of cleanup in the town's parks, right? Or something in which they have to pay back to the community, but not necessarily the court system. So anyway, I have read all the Facebook posts and everything on this. I don't think it's as cut and dried as, you know, I am totally anti-smoking. I do not like to be around it or whatnot, but I want to approach this regulation. It's a regulation that is punishable by the courts, and I want to do it very, very carefully to make sure we're really accomplishing what we believe to be a resolution of a problem that we currently have. In that vein, at a minimum, I want to hear from Colette Krabari, our prosecutor. I want to hear from the judge. And I would love to have this put in front of our Youth Leadership Council because I believe teens are going to be the most impacted. I don't think there's a real rush to do this for any crying reason. So if we want to continue along this path, I would say we do so extremely carefully and ask ourselves the question, do we want possession to be penalized? Or do we just want use to be penalized?
For minors?
Yeah, possession by minors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Possession of a cigarette.
Absolutely.
I don't.
If I have sons that are younger than yours, I have one that's a freshman in high school, and if he had a fake ID to go to a store and buy cigarettes.
No, you're presuming something here.
No, I'm just repeating what you said.
No,
if he had a fake ID.
He takes it, let's say I had a pack of cigarettes at home and my teenager takes a cigarette and puts it in his pocket. Should
Well,
that be a
I'm
penalty?
actually rebutting your original comment about if they had a fake ID and they went to a store and they bought cigarettes. I would absolutely bring him to the courthouse when he got that citation and make sure he sat in front of a judge and he went through the penalty phase.
Right, that is where he's not just in possession, but you're going to the way in which he got possession. I'm saying he takes a pack of the cigarettes on the counter. He takes a cigarette out of the pack, or he takes his older brother's vape thing and puts it in his pocket, and thereby is in possession, and thereby is thrown into the court system. I think we've got to think this through as far as the ramifications a little more seriously.
So this, back to your original question of where did this come from? I mean, this was community driven. We had members of the community come to the board and say, this is a concern. We don't want to see smoking and vaping in our parks. And that's the beauty of a small community. You can come and express your opinions, and hopefully your elected leaders will listen and do something. And I think that's what we're doing. I mean, we're having good dialogue about it, but this is about Superior making the statement, we don't want to see that in our community. I mean, we made this statement, we don't want to see smoking in buildings, and we made the statement, we don't want marijuana businesses in this town. So, I mean, this community's made a number of statements over the years of things that some people wanted, and we've had individual people lobby us that they wanted those things, but that's what the community wants. So that's what this question to me is it's what does the community want? I mean, does the community not care? I mean, we would get run out of the room in some communities if we said outlaw vaping, but you know, that's our choice as a community to make this decision. It's not going to fly in every community. And so I think that's what we're here to decide. Is it, does it fly here? So hold on, I'm not, I know. I don't think we've had enforcement headaches with smoking enforcement. I don't think we'll have enforcement headaches with this. This is about, I think this to me is about giving us, the town, and our enforcement personnel the tool to deal with the person who wants to be the wise guy and say, I'm going to do it just because I can. And you can't make me stop. There's no law against it. So I'm just going to do it to tick you off. And to me, that's what, and this is also an update. I mean, I see this really more as an update. I mean, vaping, nobody had heard of it a couple of years ago. Now, all of a sudden, it's, it's something that's on everybody's radar. So, okay, Chris and then Kevin.
Yeah, I don't see a big problem in the parks, and I'm in the parks quite a bit in the community park area. But there are those times when we're down there and you can smell the smoke. You wonder who would be smoking these days. And just it baffles me a little bit to have someone in a park at 6 o'clock at night and would be smoking a cigarette. So I think that it makes sense to maybe investigate this a little more. I'm not so sure about the open space. And when we're saying open space, what are we talking about? Are we talking about on the cement trails around the town? Are we talking about when they get out in the Boulder County open space? Or actually it might be illegal with Boulder County. Yeah. But then also, what about, where do we draw the line? What if somebody is in their backyard or in their front yard, in their garage, smoking a cigar, smoking a pipe?
Those are all exempted already.
I mean, a pipe with tobacco.
Those are all exempted already.
Okay.
So.
Because we did hear some
yard.
comments about, okay, does this lead to people smoking in their backyards and their grills and all that? And I definitely wouldn't think it would apply to that. But I think for the parks, we do need to take a serious look at that. To me, it just seems weird that people would smoke. And I enjoy a good cigar on the weekend, but I wouldn't do that in the park. I would never do that in the parks. So I think this is something that we should entertain and not put it off and hear from a prosecutor or the judge or anyone else. I think that it's something that we could talk about tonight and make a decision on one way or the other. I'm not sure if I agree that we include open space and parks, but let's talk about it.
Okay, Kevin.
So I'm eager to hear from members of the community. We've received a number of emails about this. I spent a lot of times in the parks and the trails. Some back of the envelope math. I think I've lived here for 11 years. I've probably run on average 20 miles a week, every week. So I think that's about 11,000 miles. I don't think I've ever seen anybody smoke on any trail or anybody park or in any park. Maybe I have smelled something once or twice. I can't imagine a scenario where if I did come across somebody smoking a cigar or sitting on a park bench and I was with my kids and it was bothering me, I'd either move or I'd say, hey friend, can you please relocate? And that does happen sometimes. We've all asked a smoker, maybe not here, but elsewhere, can you please extinguish or go somewhere else? I've never had a problem with that, and I'm very concerned about regulating something that does not appear to be a problem. This appears to be a solution in search of a problem. And I'm very concerned about the message we're sending to the community that that's what we are doing. We're going to regulate what can and cannot be done instead of effectively, I don't want to say policing ourselves, but being neighborly. And frankly, I don't see this as a problem today.
I think we need to go back to the beginning. And the beginning is we already have an ordinance that says you can't smoke, in public places, in many public places. So two things came up. One is, do we want to extend that to the parks specifically? No smoking in the parks. And we've gotten over the years, as a resident, I remember hearing about this, and then the last 2 years that I've been a trustee, I've been hearing about it as well. So then that was a question, do we extend it to the parks as well? No smoking in the parks. And that seemed to be kind of a logical thing to do in Superior, because we're all pretty health conscious, and as you were saying, or many of you, can't imagine anybody would want to smoke in a park anyway. So, and then the other thing about vaping is that it became, a lot of places are adding vapor cigarettes to the smoking ordinance. So it's kind of an addition to that. It's not like a new regulation. We already have the penalties up to $499. So that's not new. There's nothing new here except for adding smoking vapor cigarettes and no smoking in the park. That's what's new. We're not starting something all over again. We're not creating a law that didn't exist. We had the law. It's whether or not we extend it to be parks, include parks, and then whether we also include this new style of smoking that people have been experienced, which are vapor cigarettes. And when I read through the ordinance, I came up with that the penalties for minors are really associated with tobacco because they can't legally own tobacco. And also, I don't know anybody, and I know a lot of people in my family, not me, but, extended family that uses the vapor cigarettes now. And they almost every one of them have flavored nicotine included in their vapor cigarette. So that becomes a tobacco product in my mind. And I don't like the smell of that. They can't smoke it in my house. They all go outside. No one can smoke even those vapor cigarettes. So I think we need to kind of go back to the basics. We've asked to have this looked at, and we've asked to extend this law that we already have on the books, or the ordinance, to also include parks. And I don't know about the open space, but I don't care really. Parks and open space to me are one and the same. And then the other was that we're just adding to smoking to also recognize that now people are smoking vapor cigarettes. So let's not get too carried away. We're not making a lot of changes. So we need to, do we want to extend this law to parks? And do we want to also include vapor cigarettes, vaping, which has been something that many other communities are already including?
Comments?
I think the biggest piece for me in this is that if we vote tonight, we are giving very little time for our community to engage on this topic. We just put this ordinance together. We got it Friday. I have a very close friend who is an avid smoker. I hate the fact that she smokes, but she doesn't know this is getting ready to happen, and she walks the trails in this community all the time. And I believe that should she know that this was going to be on there, she would probably have sent us an email or come tonight. She might not have. But what concerns me is that we will vote on something and have given our community less than a week's notice. We propose this. I don't like us to surprise our residents with making a decision on something that affects them, on walking through the park or walking down a sidewalk. I have friends who walk their dogs down through the open space off Rock Creek Circle. They smoke, and now they will not be able to do that. So where will they walk their dogs? They will now have to stop smoking, and I'm not comfortable. I hate smoking. I don't like being in a park when someone smokes, but I feel it is very unfair for us to vote on this tonight and not have given more notice to our residents. If we're going to vote on it, I would prefer we put it off for at least another 2 weeks till our next meeting, and that we really make an effort to communicate to our residents. I mean, there were people who engaged on Facebook. But other than that, how many people in the town of Superior actually even knew this was being voted on tonight?
Well, it was in the Denver Post, so we got a lot of communication about it.
But everybody doesn't read the Denver Post
I know.
between now and Friday. And so I would just like, if we're going to do this, let's make sure that everybody doesn't say, oh, that was 7 people sitting in front of a room, and they really didn't give me much of an opportunity to comment on this. I know my neighbor will eat me alive because I didn't tell her about it. I didn't know she was out of town. I knocked on her door. She wasn't there.
Let's, any further comments, and then we'll do public comment.
Sure. I guess in general, I agree with pretty much everything that's been said on both sides of the issue tonight. And generally speaking, I'm not in favor of expanding government and do not believe that it's the job of the government to function as a nanny state to solve all of our problems. But my guiding principle for the decisions that I'll make as a trustee is if this is going to improve the quality of life for the residents here in Superior. And I believe that maintaining our quality of life is our paramount responsibility. And if we can improve it when we can, we should definitely do that. I'm a father of young children. We use the parks all the time. And I certainly don't want my kids to have to breathe in secondhand smoke. I don't want any of the children in town or any of the residents in town to have to breathe in secondhand smoke. I think cigarettes on our open space lands pose a fire danger. We had a grass fire this summer, as we all can remember, where half the hill on the south side of town burned up. And so, I think that cigarettes are a clear danger in open space lands, and I think they really don't belong in parklands as well. The vaping issue is a bit different. I don't know too much about vaping, but I've read that there are health risks associated with secondhand vaping. When you couple in the fact that a not insignificant percentage of vaping is actually using illicit drugs like marijuana as opposed to tobacco, I'm generally in favor of preventing that from being used in our parks. I guess that one of the questions that I had, with this ordinance is really to Trustee Pennington's unintended consequences comment about, what are we going to be doing to the kids that get, fined and ticketed for violating this ordinance. And I'm concerned about a slippery slope here because under Section 7350B, it says it's unlawful for a minor to purchase, obtain, or attempt to purchase or obtain a tobacco product in the town by misrepresentation of age or by any other method. So you could read that to say it is unlawful for a minor to attempt to obtain a tobacco product by any other method. That's very broad. And I don't know the situation where somebody would actually get fined for being in a circumstance like that, but it's possible. Things happen. And I don't think that we should necessarily rush to legislate something if it's not a clear problem that we're really addressing. That said, I hate smoking. I've never vaped, and I don't believe that it belongs in our town or in our public parks. And I agree with the mayor's point that part of this is sending a message. So I am conflicted on where I stand on this, and I hope that it'll be informed by public comment here today.
Okay. All right, let's offer an opportunity for public comment. If you'd like to make public comment, just give a wave and come on up. Thank you.
My name's Catherine York. I am the president of the Smoke Free Alternatives Trade Association chapter of Colorado, and my husband and I own an e-liquid manufacturing lab and facility based in Denver, Colorado. I'm here because I'm concerned that some of the proposed amendments to the existing ordinance diminish the distinctions between vapor products and traditional tobacco products by removing the category of nicotine products specifically, and in various other ways that we'll get into in a minute. And my concern is in part based on what I see, based on my understanding of these products, which is informed by a daily interaction with them. My interpretation of the difference between true tobacco products and nicotine-based vapor products. There are a number of international studies that recognize the harm reduction capabilities of having a smoker switch from a cigarette to a nicotine-based vapor product. And I understand that if you're not familiar with the products, you might not have had the experience of standing next to someone who's smoking a cigarette compared to standing next to someone who is vaping. And unless you see them vaping, you're very unlikely to experience a real reaction to them vaping. There's no noxious byproduct smell. And I am in a bizarre position where the FDA will require me to pay millions of dollars to make a modified risk claim myself about my own products. But I am so concerned with the misinterpretation of our products that I encourage everyone on this board to read a 200-page report by the Royal College of Physicians out of England that recognizes nicotine-based vapor products as 95% less harmful than traditional cigarettes. And maybe if you aren't up for that 200-page report, I have a summary that they have provided that I printed out a copy for each of you that you might want to look at later. When a organization or when a city demonizes vapor products and treats them the same as cigarettes, someone who is a current smoker is extremely unlikely to consider adopting vapor products as a harm reduction alternative to their current use of cigarettes. And if nothing else, for your neighbor who smokes, or maybe your friend who smokes, who we're all concerned about because we know how bad smoking is for you. If nothing else has worked in their life, the peer pressure and the condemnation of society, maybe these products are something that should be treated with caution when issuing ordinances. And I know that you're already considering looking at the language more carefully. An example from the actual proposed amendments, when this new signage language, in the redlined version on page 8, item 3 near the top of the page, when a tobacco store wants to have smoking in their store, they have to put up a sign that says smoking permitted, children under 18 years of age must be accompanied by a parent or guardian. That's well and good if you're a traditional tobacco store and you don't mind if someone is smoking a traditional tobacco product. But if you had a vape shop that only sold nicotine-based vapor products in your town, they would have to put up that sign and would have no way of saying that they only wanted vaping instead of also allowing smoking, because the definition of smoking now includes the activation of electronic devices, right? And so as the city approaches potentially rewriting some of the amendments, things like that are something I would encourage the city to look at. If you're interested, I'd be happy to either answer questions or just drop off this summary. Questions?
Catherine, quick question.
Yes.
Do you live in town?
I do not. I did go to CU and live about 10 minutes away up until a couple years ago, but I do not at this time.
Thank you.
So I know, but as the president of the Trade Association chapter in Colorado, I do feel an obligation just to communicate our concerns when a city considers doing something like this. And just to clarify, some cities have actually tried similar things, but a number of those cities also decided that vaping is a separate category. Like, for example, in Arvada, Wheat Ridge, Loveland, it was treated as a third category instead of pot or traditional cigars, cigarettes. Vaping is a third category because, and although we understand it is a new product and that there's some uncertainty, we feel that the science is clear enough that it is different, that it deserves recognition as a different category and regulation.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. And yeah, feel free to drop off those handouts.
I would like to see the handouts.
Okay, additional public comment.
So I wasn't planning on speaking. My name's Corey
If you could-
Vigil. I am actually her husband.
If you start with your name, please. Yeah,
Corey
thank you.
Vigil. I
Thank
am
you.
actually the owner of the partnership with my wife for the liquid company in Denver. What concerns me and scares me about this is I was a terrible teenager, and no matter what you guys do or did, we still did stupid stuff. All kids do. But to actually get charged with possession of a cigarette is mind-boggling, because I've been in the system. It's not a pleasant experience, and I still can't have rights today because of my past. So that's scary if you're a 14-year-old kid and you try smoking, which I don't commend. I think it's a terrible idea, and you get a $500 ticket. That's just insane. It seems like a lot of money for a 14-year-old to have to pay because they got caught making a mistake when their parents should talk to them about smoking or marijuana or vaping. It seems like that's a parental issue as opposed to the cops that had to leave to go save the robbery that was just happening. Like, that seems like a waste of their time writing tickets for vaping or smoking, as opposed to being on call for robberies or speeders or DUIs or anything else that's actually harmful to the public. Yes, smoking is terrible. There's a lot of unfamiliarity with vaping. But I've been using these products since 2008. They're not as new as people think they are. They're only new because the media makes them new. But without these products, I probably wouldn't be able to breathe as well or do anything productive because smoking literally kills you. But that's all I have to say. I just really hope you look at it from the aspect of being a broke teenager with parents that should be teaching them not to smoke as opposed to how to make more money for the city. But that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Yes.
I'm Barbara Janes, 2305 Clayton Circle. And Sandy, I agree with you. I don't want to see the teens have a record. I want community service is a beautiful thing. I live in the nonprofit sector. That's what my job is. So I agree with that. But I'm going to tell you things where this comes from. I am down in Community Park with my dog every morning. If the kids don't want to go to high school, they go over there and start getting stoned. I'm tired of seeing it. And I've gone to the police and asked them, can you just park a cruiser here so that they won't come? I'm surprised I haven't gotten my teeth knocked down my throat because I've approached so many people saying, what are you doing? We're just taking a walk. And I'm like, well, you can just walk back to your car. It was an older gentleman and a teenager, and it was a drug deal. I came across 6 teens in a circle at Community Park right by the swings, vaping and passing it around. You don't know what they're doing. It looks like they're getting stoned. It's not the perception we want. The castle behind the ball field, that's what they call it, the castle, they hang out there and get high. This comes from me walking my dog. That's where this comes from, and it comes from what I see. And I agree with you. Parents need to parent. It starts at home. And we shouldn't penalize the children because the parents are negligent. And I would like, I don't think it's attractive. I think it's a deterrent. If someone were walking through the park then and saw that circle of teenagers passing around the vape or whatever it was, and it was someone considering to open a business here, how do you think that appears? Or someone considering to relocate here? That's not behooving. That doesn't do anything to our property value except take away from it. And it doesn't help our kids. And I think that, across the board, it doesn't matter about the age. This just doesn't need to be at our playgrounds. And so, that's my passionate plea. And it breaks my heart to see our kids doing these things. I want to see I love teenagers. I have teenagers at home. I want to see our teens in our parks, out in our communities. I embrace them. I love them. I think it's wonderful. Throw a fizzy, play hacky sack. Don't be out there smoking and vaping. That's not what we build parks for. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Go ahead.
Mayor, trustees, staff, my name is Jennifer Kovarik. I'm the program coordinator for the Tobacco Education and Prevention Partnership for Boulder County Public Health. Thank you so much for taking this topic on. It's very important. I've been doing tobacco prevention and control work for over a decade now, and it's been my privilege to work on 4 of these ordinance and code changes in Boulder County, incorporating electronic smoking devices and marijuana in smoke-free expansions. I think you have made some excellent changes in your expansion. I think there are some other areas that could potentially be addressed. We'd be happy, my team and I, to offer our services to you and your team. I think that we would agree that possession clauses sometimes can be very difficult, putting an onus on teens when we know that the tobacco industry is pursuing them relentlessly as consumers. And so something that is fairly unique for Colorado is we don't have a tobacco retail license. we're one of a handful of states that doesn't license tobacco retailers and doesn't put any real responsibility on them for selling to teenagers. And I think that's something else that some communities have considered in response to that particular component of this code, separate from a smoke-free expansion. Other communities that have looked at this have really appreciated, much as you said, Mayor, a new tool in their toolbox as they look to address issues in downtown environments, in parks and open space, a new way to address situations, but not something that's perhaps being addressed every time or every time up to, for example, a $499 amount. So I think ultimately just wanted to offer our services and commend you for your excitement about this issue, and then hope to offer some lessons learned from other communities along the way. So thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Hi, my name is Monica Vondruska, and I own 2 vape shops, one located in Denver, one located in Arvada, and then I also have an e-liquid company that is located out of Golden. I live in Cold Creek Canyon, so I'm on Cold Creek Canyon Drive. I thought it was appropriate. But one of the issues that I have with this ordinance is that it kind of blurs the line a little bit more for the vape shop owners and the people who are selling vapor products. I've never sold traditional combustible tobacco products in my vape shops, and possibly having a sign that says smoking is permitted on my premises makes my skin crawl. I am not smoking, I am a vapor, and there should be a separate category for such. Vapor products can and cannot contain nicotine. Tobacco is tobacco. They're not synonymous, they're completely different. So we need to separate the nicotine and the vapor products from the smoking products. As a business owner, if I look at these ordinances against public spaces, it's a turnoff for me. Unfortunately, I don't know if you want me in Superior, but unfortunately, like I pay a lot of taxes to other cities, I do not sell to minors. Minors are not allowed in my store. I do not sell anything that can vaporize marijuana, ever. There's a difference between marijuana, smoking, and vapor products. Keep them separate. Keep the community of Superior knowledgeable about these differences, and you'll see a benefit in the long run. But grouping them all together, sorry, my voice is shaking here, but if you group them all together, there is this consistency that all these products are the same. They are not. If you see people vaping marijuana in a park and they're underage, it's already illegal for them. There is no need for a redundant law in Superior. It's already illegal for them. And it does not mean that they're using my vapor products in order to do that. That's where I get so flustered, is that I am not big tobacco. I do not want to sell to minors. There are 40,000 smokers in the US. Why would I want to tap into somebody who doesn't have that habit already? It doesn't make business sense whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
if you have any questions, please ask me.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello again. Jacques Lafleur, 3039 Canna Place. I'm very much a bystander, so I'm just speaking as a resident, just commenting on some of the feedback that we've been discussing and on the discussion itself. My one comment is I think it's important to clarify if we're trying to address, or if the town is trying to address a health issue or an aesthetic issue. So just listening, as a resident to the discussion, I think it's important to clarify, if we're trying to just address a health concern or an aesthetic concern. So that's my feedback.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Well, thank you to whoever posted it on Facebook. That's what made me aware, and I agree with Sandy Hammerly that...
Excuse me, do you mind starting with your name?
I'm sorry, my name is
please?
Gabriel Kirsten.
Thank you.
And I agree with Sandy that certainly there's plenty of people here who would have a voice either way that live in Superior, and they should be given the opportunity to bring their thoughts to the board of trustees. I am a business owner. I pay over $750,000 in taxes a year, some to Superior, and some in Broomfield, some in Lafayette, federal and state. 19-year county resident, and never smoked a cigarette in my life. So, however, I do think that this is a problem where we're trying to regulate other people's behavior. I'm personally offended by perfume, Humvees, fat people, dogs pooping in the park. So these are all things that we find offensive. We shouldn't legislate offensive behaviors. If they're dangerous to other people, yes, maybe it should be legislated. We can't go stabbing people in the street. We can't hit people. We can't yell at people in certain ways. That is, we're not hurting other people if somebody is smoking or vaping or whatever they're doing in the park. That dog owner who is walking their dog, enjoying half a cigarette on his way home after a long day at work, doesn't want to smoke in his house. Pays his taxes, just like all the rest of us do, for that park. So I think that we need to really consider those who are not in the majority. And it looks like around here we have a pretty even split of people interested in this ordinance going through and not going through. But we should really consider those people who are not here, who may be in the minority of what we're considering. The majority should not rule. And that's why we don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic. So I'm concerned that we are discouraging those who don't smoke from going outside and not enjoying the outdoors because they're required to smoke only in their house. I know smokers. I know lots of smokers. They enjoy going outside. They may not run while they smoke, but they certainly take the dogs for a walk. They certainly may ski or snowboard and smoke a cigarette once in a while. Do whatever they want to do, but they should be allowed to do that because they've paid their taxes, just like the rest of us have paid our taxes for these parks. So that's kind of what I have to say here, and I appreciate those of you who have expressed some concern that we're over-legislating situations. And to Sandy's point, I got 4 over 20, okay? None of them smoke. That's not true. One of them does smoke. And he's very difficult in general anyway. But nothing that we did by legislation or by rules in our house made a damn's worth of difference to that child. Because they're going to do what they're going to do by the choices that they're going to make. And we can't legislate choices. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any additional public comment? Okay.
If you would like, I can just address a couple of things that were brought up, just to inform the board's discussion. First of all, the fine of $499 is an up to number. Just to point that out, it's not an automatic, and our judge regularly deals with fines that are up to a certain amount and doesn't always impose the maximum. So that's just something to think about. You're also able to reduce that. So $499 is the magic number at which a crime or an offense is not a crime. It's not considered criminal. So we could go down to 200, 100, whatever that may be, just throwing that out there as another option. If the fine amount is of particular concern, we can certainly reduce that. And that reduction could either only apply to the minors section or the whole thing. So that's something we can keep in mind too. And also, I did want to point out that this ordinance does make it a crime, or make it a violation, to sell to minors. So that is included in this draft already. Because realizing that state law does not make that a crime, but this does.
Kendra, as a point of clarification, we took action sometime in the near past in which we extended it as a crime to sell to minors.
Yes.
At the time, that resolution included the language, we made it a violation for a minor to possess. And you'll recall I raised a big stink at that point, and I said, is this current law or not? And you said, no, it isn't. And the reason I made a stink was, had I not asked that question, I would have thought we were just extending current law. We're just basically changing the business about not selling nicotine products to minors without the knowledge that it was not then the law that minors could not possess.
Okay.
So I am thereby shocked. There was a memo you wrote to the board.
Yes.
That's appended. I don't know if it's on everybody's packet or just the board packet.
It's confidential, so yeah. It's just
Okay.
yours. Mhm.
So I'm going to be a little careful here and just ask the question. Is it currently in the town of Superior illegal for a minor to possess tobacco products? Don't go to consume or use, possess.
No.
So we are, with this law, adding a new body of law, making it illegal for a minor to now possess if we pass this.
I'm confirming this right now, but I believe that's the case.
But it's legal under state law.
Huh?
It's legal under state law.
It's legal under state
No,
law?
it's illegal under state
It's
law.
illegal.
Well, that's,
So then wouldn't it be,
Yeah, so I just want to clarify, I'm just talking about your code right now.
right. In our code.
In your code, no.
No what?
It is not illegal for a minor to possess, I'll just use a cigarette for now, under your code, but it is illegal under state law.
And what does that dichotomy mean?
They can be charged.
Under state law, but
Yes.
not under town,
Exactly,
under town code?
exactly.
and would we have not put that in our town code because of that? Because it's already not legal under state law?
It's up to us to, if we put it in our town code, what that really means is that our sheriff's department can write tickets and write them into our court. That's the
Oh.
only difference. If not, they would have to write it into Boulder County.
Right.
If it's not a violation under our code, it has to go to county court.
So Kendra, if I'm understanding what you said before about the 499 magic number,
Yes.
that is the threshold where if we were above that, it would rise to the level of a misdemeanor
Yes.
or a felony if it was more serious.
Yes.
So for a minor who gets charged under this ordinance as it's currently written, that minor is not charged with a crime. It's more akin to like a parking ticket.
Exactly. And we can make it even more akin to a parking ticket by reducing the number if we want to. $4.99 is the maximum amount of a fine that you may have before it automatically becomes a criminal violation, whether or not jail is part of the penalty.
And do you know, is there any consequence for a minor from a reporting perspective when they're charged for these types of violations that are, quasi-parking parking tickets? Do they have any obligation to report that to employers typically, or colleges when they're applying?
Typically, no, but it depends on the nature of the question. A lot of colleges and employers have gotten very clever about the nature of the question they ask on their applications. Have you ever been to court, for example? I'm just saying, so if the question is, have you ever been convicted of a crime? No. The answer is no, you have not. Even if you got an offense for $499, even if you got 5 offenses for $499 for violations of this, none of those are criminal acts. None of those are criminal convictions. So legally, no. If the question is, have you ever been convicted of a crime? No.
Okay, thank you.
Going to, can I go?
Go ahead.
The one gentleman, somebody asked, Jacques, you asked, are we trying to improve health?
Or aesthetics?
Or aesthetics.
Aesthetics or
right.
health, yeah.
Okay, so obviously my feeling is that this is a commendable first draft, and it articulated some things that needed to be articulated. I think it is too far reaching, obviously. I do not want to change town code to include minors who possess. I feel strongly about that. I don't know if
But
that should.
on that
But-
point though, wouldn't we want someone that got
Yes.
caught for possession? Wouldn't we want them in our court in this room instead of
Boulder
trucking
County.
it to Boulder County and dealing with
No,
them?
I won't do either.
But that's what
But
they're
they
going to
have.
get today. I mean, if they get busted with
No,
possession today, they're going to Boulder County.
We don't ticket it now, is how I understood it.
No,
Is our
that's-
sheriff does not
Well,
ticket.
Boulder County Sheriff could.
Possession of cigarettes.
And I don't, yeah, I would defer to Sergeant Chamberlain about
So
whether
I-
they
But
are.
the
they-
law is, I mean, the law is there, they could ticket them for that.
Possibly. But I don't want to be part of making it a crime in the town of Superior. That's my personal feeling. But this is not my point. My point is, what are we about here? And at least when you get a minor in possession for alcohol, you must take a class of, God knows, extended number of weeks to teach about the perils of alcohol usage, et cetera, et cetera. We don't include anything like that for minors in here. And after hearing from, what's your name? Jennifer, if we're really serious about doing this for what I think are the Sandy's correct reasons, I'm not imputing that to the whole board, we should be thinking of for minors requiring an education type of experience so they can at least become informed about the perils of alcohol and the addictiveness of of tobacco and the addictiveness of nicotine and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I view this as a good working draft. I would like to propose that we think about what it is we're trying to accomplish here. We actually take the offered help from both the vaping industry and from the tobacco experts. And if we want to do this, do it well, and give ourselves the benefit of time to engage the public who has not yet, our superior public, who may or may not have heard of this. So, anyway, if it goes forth as tonight, I have really no choice but to say no to it.
Okay. From my perspective, I'm not in a particular rush to get it done tonight. I think there have been a lot of good points made on both sides, and I think we have made some good progress here tonight, and I would like to continue the discussion. I would like to hear from Sergeant Chamberlain as well. I think that's a very valid point to hear about what if enforcement things look like to date on our current ordinance, and what might this look like. I imagine those are some of your questions, and so I think that's valid to hear that. So
At the same time, I'm personally not interested in pulling this. I personally would like to see this go to a vote. I loathe smoking. My mother was a lifelong smoker and died a horrible, painful death. It was awful. I loathe it. I am not at all on the side of smoking. I think we're not doing a good job here, right? We have an existing ordinance, and it protects kids. Adults can't sell to children. Children can't smoke. There's good state law on that. We need to do more tobacco outreach and prevention to make sure that kids that are smoking today don't smoke. We are mixing the traditional tobacco, combustible tobacco, with vaping. These are different issues. I don't like vaping either, but I understand that there are people that vape. I don't like the idea that people are smoking in parks. Yet I can't imagine a scenario where somebody was smoking in a park near my kids, and I was inconvenienced or threatened by it, and I asked them not to do it, where that individual or group of individuals wouldn't move. But I'm also 6'4" and 235 pounds. So my ability to influence teenagers may be different than other people's ability to influence teenagers. I think teenagers that are smoking marijuana in our parks is an issue, and we should address that with enforceability, and it's just unacceptable to me. And I apologize to the residents that are experiencing that, and I think Sergeant Chamberlain should be notified, and hopefully will enforce that. And I personally wouldn't want to see those kids arrested. I'd like to see them, hopefully Sergeant Chamberlain will have a nice conversation with the parents. This is overreaching. This feels to me too much of a nanny state, and I would like to see it go to vote. I will not support it. And if it is redrafted in some simpler form that was focused on traditional combustible tobacco only in parks, then perhaps one day I'd support it, but as is, this doesn't appear to be something that we could edit or fix this evening, and I'd like to see it go to vote.
Okay. Others?
Again, question on the clarification on open spaces. Are we including, if somebody were walking down Indiana Street towards Colton, is that considered part of the open space, so they couldn't smoke their cigarette on their, walking their dog there?
I think that's a good question. That's something that the board needs to discuss.
If that were the case, I would probably not support it. I do support the parks, though, and more for what Jacques said. I think he made it really clear. That's the reason why I support it. It's more about the aesthetic feel, not so much the health. I think we've got a real healthy town, but I think the aesthetic feel is something that I want to see changed. Now, even if we don't have the manpower to enforce it on a daily basis, still having it on our books as not allowed, not legal, I think that makes sense. If it's not there, then anybody can do it anytime. If it is there, at least some people might think twice about doing it.
I'm sorry, I just want to quickly clarify. I was just pointing out that.
Chuck, can we can't have comments from because it's not recorded. So, yeah, thank you.
So,
okay,
regardless of what the intent of his point was, I agree that it's more of an aesthetic thing to me than it is about a health issue.
Okay.
I'd like to echo, what everybody said. I loathe smoking as well, and I think that, part of what we're doing here by enacting an ordinance like this is sending a message about what kind of town Superior wants to be. Do we want to be a town that allows smoking in parks, or do we want to be a town that forbids it? Boulder's a town that forbids it. Do we want to be like Boulder, or do we want to be like a town that does not expressly forbid it? I don't know what the answer is to that, but I do think that that's essentially what we're going to be doing here. I don't think we're going to be ruining kids' lives. I think these are parking tickets that are going to be issued. But at the end of the day, I think this ordinance is ambiguous. And, open space areas is not defined. I think Chris just made a really good point about, walking on the sidewalk by Colton in Indiana. Is that considered open space or not? How is law enforcement going to enforce an ordinance that right now we don't even understand what the definition of open space is, because it's not actually defined in the ordinance? So I think that this is a good, first step in the discussion. But as a lawyer, I deal with poorly drafted statutes and ambiguous issues all the time, and it just creates more problems. And if we're rushing to make a decision about something before we're absolutely clear about what exactly it is that we want to convey, I think we're going to be making a mistake. So I would recommend that we not rush to a vote on this just to have the formality of the vote, but actually work on revising this, if that's something that the board chooses to do, so we can actually enact the policy that we actually want.
I would agree. I would like to vote on this, but I don't want to vote on it just for the sake of it going down because we didn't get it right, and then maybe forget about it and just for the sake of, got other stuff to worry about. So I'd rather get it to a form where we feel better about it. I'm not expecting that we'll have a 7-0 vote at that point, but so be it. I mean, and it may not ultimately pass, but I think we would not be doing this right if we just put it to a vote and said, oh, to heck with it. So I agree with you. So with that, someone need to make a motion to pull it?
It can die for lack of a motion. It can be tabled to a date certain. It can be tabled indefinitely. It's really up to the board.
Can we table it to, like Sandy Hammerly had suggested, to the next meeting in 2 weeks, but maybe we can give them a little direction, and if we can easily define what we mean by open space. Mark, I agree with you that we don't want people smoking out on Coyote Ridge. I agree with that, but I think that we shouldn't restrict people if they're walking their dog or what have you down Indiana or any of the other streets, that we shouldn't really restrict that at this point. But I do think that we should restrict in the parks. So to me, that's a good starting point. And if we want to eliminate the part that Sandy had an issue with of fining youth in this town if they get caught with a cigarette, and instead of coming to the town of Superior to pay their fine, they go to Boulder County, then I guess I'm fine with that too. I personally would rather have them come through here.
That's not what I'm saying, just to be clear.
Okay.
No. Right now, nobody goes to Boulder County.
They would, though.
When a youth possesses a cigarette. I mean,
Well, they could, I mean.
But they're
Nobody
not.
does.
They're not, because it's not something that we enforce, right?
No.
When
it
was the
could
last?
be. Well, I
when-
don't know whether
Yeah.
it's actively enforced in that.
I'd like to see the data on how many of our youth are ticketed for underage possession of a cigarette and go to Boulder County. I would bet it's a big fat zero.
And-
And I'm worried that we're about to give staff direction to rewrite an ordinance that I personally don't want rewritten. I do want to vote this and then forget about it. I personally, as a trustee, do not think we should be prioritizing this for staff. This is very complex. There's been some great comments made tonight and received over email about the complexity of vaping and marijuana and traditional combustible, and then open space versus parks and smoking areas and non-smoking areas. And it's a very complex issue, trying to address a problem that we heard from Matt earlier, that town staff has not received any complaints about. This is something that was board initiated. I personally do not want to prioritize this for the staff. Rewriting this to get it right.
It wasn't from the board, it was from residents. Now, we can debate how many residents, and we had more residents that sent us emails that said they didn't want smoking in the parks. And that's really where it started from. So we need to decide, this ordinance clearly isn't the one we should be considering. And I think just to vote down this one, which now obviously no one seems to want in this forum, doesn't eliminate the need for us to discuss, do we want to extend the no smoking to parks? And I think that's a valid thing to consider. And, whether we extend it along the sidewalk, along McCaslin, in open space, or whatever, we need to think through that a little bit more. But I think we should let this one die by no motion and go back and see and ask the question again. Do we want to extend the no smoking to our parks? And then we have to get into the discussion of what is smoking. And in today's world, almost everybody, when you say smoking, also includes e-cigarettes. No, not you people. I know the people back there that are, but I mean, normal people that aren't in the business will think that vaping creates, people perceive that. And so we can have that discussion separately. But the first discussion is really, do we want to extend the no smoking, even if we just first define no smoking in the traditional sense with a tobacco or smoking of anything that creates a flame and smoke and all that kind of stuff, then do we want that to be not allowed in our parks? And I think that was a valid reason to bring this forward. Now, we've turned it into a debate over whether vaping is morally or
And
ethically
minors,
or
yeah,
minors is correct and all that. But I still want to go back to, and I'd like to have an ordinance that says no smoking in the parks. I want that. So if we can't have this, then we need to go back and look at something that may be more acceptable. And I think we also need to listen to all those people that have told us they don't want smoking in the parks.
Which the overwhelming amount of emails that we got, I know people don't like to count them and all that, but I can tell you the overwhelming number of people said, pass this.
Right. So that's why I think that,
So
okay, let's go back and redefine it.
Yes.
And ask it again, but not vote on this. Let's just drop this, let's start over.
To be clear, the people who responded to the Facebook and whatnot did not read the detail of the ordinances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They responded to, should smoking be allowed in parks? Okay, that's a much easier question to answer than do all the details as itemized in these ordinances do what we want them to do, and that's our job. So to say that we should be guided by people who said no to smoking in parks with this specific set of details, that's a huge disconnect. So let's be fair here to what the residents have said. Kevin makes an excellent point. And whether or not we choose to vote on it, or whether or not we choose to let it die a natural death, I do not wish this template that we've established here right now to be used as the template for any ordinance going forward. I would like us to actually listen to what we heard tonight, that tobacco is different from vaping. Is it aesthetics we're trying to do, or is it health? And I would actually like us, if there's any appetite, and I'm much more akin to Kevin's stance, that given the huge priorities we have right now, I don't think this is a priority I would thrust on this board. Having said that, I do think that Barbara's comments about what she's facing in the parks does need to be addressed by law enforcement right now, and I think current law allows that to be addressed. So I don't believe you should have to put up with what you've seen and experienced in the parks. You're not 6'4", et cetera, et cetera. And I can understand how you're less inclined to try to scurry these people out of the parks, right? You leave instead, right? And I understand how you feel like you don't have the use of the parks that you should have. So, but I think that can be addressed under current statutes, et cetera, et cetera. But if we go forth, if the majority on the board wants to go forth and make this a board priority for 2017, I would say we scuttle this particular language and come at the language a lot fresher and not be bound, because sometimes when we use this template, it still has too many holdovers. And I'd like us to go about it a whole lot differently than what we've attempted in this first draft.
We're not recommending that we use this. What we're recommending is we start again afresh with the current ordinance. We just do nothing with this.
With current town code.
Yeah, the current ordinance. What's already on the books, I mean,
Right, what's
which is
already
an
on the books.
ordinance. It's
Right.
already on the books. And if you take a look at it and see if you want to have it changed.
Right.
But not,
Okay,
we
hold
don't, no more action on this.
So, speaking with Kendra, we're not sure about direction. I mean, I think it's clear that the split, there's some board members that would rather just drop the issue. Some like to see revisions made. Maybe Trustee Lasis and Trustee Hammerly could weigh in, and then we might have a better idea of how to proceed.
Yeah, so we need to, yeah, I mean, the question is,
we can draft it however
redraft
the
or let
board
this,
wants,
or
but
let
it's
this
hard
go.
to
Yeah.
it's hard to hear what we're looking for. I mean, we can limit it to parks. We can remove open space altogether. We can not address the parks or the open space issue. We can reduce the penalty. We can get rid of possession for minors as So, okay.
Can I need to go to the airport, so I'm going to leave. If we're not going to vote, then if we're going to vote, I need to know if we're going to vote now, because I need to go pick somebody up at the airport at 10:30. So
Okay.
I need to get out, so.
I'm not intending to vote.
Okay, so is it, I need to leave. Is that okay? Okay.
Clear. Okay, you want to get some direction from
Sandy? So I'd like to see a rewrite. I am very cautious when we're going to move forward on any legislation. Generally speaking, I think that the status quo should be preserved, and if we don't necessarily need an ordinance, then we shouldn't enact one just for the fun of it. That said, I do think that sending a message to the town, sending a message to the world at large that Superior does not allow smoking in its parks, smoking in its open space, sends a message about the type of town that we are. We're consistently ranked as one of the best places in this country to live. And I think that this is one of those things that can add to that, this is the quality of life that we want for our town. I don't want our residents to be not able to use our parks and open space because they're forced to breathe secondhand smoke. So I think we need to take another crack at redrafting that, and if we can come to some consensus about what specifically we want to do and the actual policy that we want to enact, I would be in support of it, provided that it's carefully drafted and it actually does what we want it to do.
Okay. Sandy Hummerly.
I guess I can't really add much other than to say I think if we move forward with this, we've got to absolutely have some definitions of what spaces. I think Chris raised a great point. Is it okay to walk on a sidewalk and smoke? Well, does that mean you can walk in open space sidewalk? So those are the sorts of things, if you're moving and smoking, is it different than 10 kids congregating and being threatening? So to me, the kids being threatening, that's a somewhat different issue than just smoking. They're harassing people. So I think the language in this is extremely nebulous. If we're going to move forward, I would say we scrap it completely, and we really need to be tight on the language we use. But like Kevin, I do not believe in being in a nanny state. And I'm not 6'4" and however many pounds you weigh. But I've never been intimidated by somebody that I thought was causing a risk to me to say, would you mind moving that? Now, they might tell me something, but, I just think we're jumping too fast on this, and I really believe we haven't had enough public engagement, so.
Okay, so I think we've got at least enough, we don't have unanimous direction to move forward with revisions, but we've got at least a majority to move forward with revisions, so let's move in that direction.
Can you, if you're going to include definitions in the potential ordinance, can you define open space? And maybe we start with our definition. I mean, we've got definitions of open space.
Maybe I can suggest that we draft the ordinance to include sort of a lot of what we heard. I mean, it's very hard for me to tell whether we are including open space or not, whether we're including all parks, whether we're including trails. If what we can do is we can draft it all. In other words, we can add an open space definition and keep open space, and then we can start removing things if that's what the board would like to do. I'm just honestly, I don't know how to revise this right now. I have no idea what the direction is. So, and I understand you're not all in agreement, and that's part of the issue. So
But I think we are on open space. I think maybe we need to have 5 more minutes on if we are to prohibit this behavior somewhere. Let's go to tobacco smoking. Is it just in our parks? Are we okay with just saying our parks? Or do we want to do parks and some other part, and how do we characterize those? Are we talking, what are we talking about?
I think parks is easier to define, and
We could simply list the parks.
and typically, not always, but typically when people are in the open space, they're moving, they're walking along the trail, or, they're not just hanging out
Right.
on a trail for 15, 20 minutes, they're moving to another place in town. So, I mean,
So, well, I think you all know where I sit on this. I mean, I would, if there was something that said around, if you were defining parks around Pirate Park and Firehouse Park and playgrounds, that's a no-brainer. Anybody that's smoking a combustible cigarette anywhere near a playground intended for children is not a smart person, and I would have no problem legislating the prevention of something like that. So, I mean, I would personally be supportive of, all right, now we're defining parks as the playgrounds like, again, Firehouse Park, Pirate Park, but not, the new El Dorado K-8 park. That's not really a playground. Anyway, so I mean, I understand the complexity, but if we are limiting this to parks and dangerous combustible tobacco, where proven secondhand smoke, I mean, I think I'd be a little more supportive personally.
Okay.
What about the vaping aspect of it? I have really no knowledge of vaping and what the odors are that come out, or the secondhand impact.
My thought there was we would start out with smoking tobacco and have the discussion and move forward, and get additional information out to the board, and if you decide to make revision at the next time we have the discussion, we can add that and come back, but that's where I was going to start.
Okay. It sounds, from Jennifer Kovarik's experiences too, it sounds like you might have some resources from other jurisdictions that maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel on this, and I think that's always a wise thing to do. So let's connect with resources there. I'm not ready to strip out vaping either. I think that's part of this is a visual thing that we're trying to define our community by, and so I'm not ready to strip that piece of it out. I think the smoking is the no-brainer part of this, but we have an opportunity to do some other things to define the community. So, sorry to make this complex. but
Can I make one answer?
That's what we do.
Would you say exclude Scanlon Field, Stewart Field, and Williams Field, the baseball diamonds and the multi-purpose field? Because I wouldn't exclude those.
I mean, Chris, these are all such great questions. If I was prioritizing this on 1 through 10, I've got a list of 50 issues between, 6 and 10 for Matt and staff, and I would give this a priority 1. So I'm really stuck on this. I mean, it's a good question about Williams Field. I don't know. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I just don't, this is my concern, right? I mean, this is going to take brain power and collaboration, and I'd rather be out there as a community bringing in new businesses, and I like Jock's point between is this an aesthetic or if it's a health issue. And if it's a health issue, let's address the true health concerns around dangerous narcotics that our kids are taking. And let's make if we want to make a stance around a healthy community, let's make a stance around a healthy community. If this is aesthetics, it feels like we're going to have a dress code. I mean, it's just, I'm confused.
That's a good idea.
Well, but I mean, your point of attracting businesses, I mean, these are the kind of things you define your community by. And that's, I think
But
that's
we
part
are
of this as well.
95% there. I mean, we have a plenty attractive community. So
We
we
do.
have a
We
few
do.
little glitches.
Okay, anything further? Okay, so it's going to go for lack of motion.
It's up to you. You could do a motion to table to the 23rd, or you can not do anything. It's up to you.
Yeah, I would prefer just lack of motion, because I don't want to set an arbitrary date to bring this back. We need to go back and do some work.
Right.
so.
I
think
agree.
that's appropriate. Okay.
No pressure for 2 weeks.
Okay, so we do not have a date certain. We're just we're gonna work on it, and it's gonna come back when it's ready to come back.
At some point.
Okay.
And then, Matt, just one more thing. Given the community's interest in this, once you do have I know sometimes releasing the board package to the community on a Friday is this one in particular, given the interest of the community, if we could try to get it out there a day or two earlier than a Friday, maybe on even on a Thursday, to give folks the opportunity to comment between that Thursday and Monday when we're voting would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
And allowing them to comment at March 7th if we don't have.
6th, March 6th.
6th, March 6th, to, putting that on the list of things to bring your opinions on.
Okay. All right, we're a little behind schedule, but with that, let's move on to item 13, which is adoption of a resolution making appointments to the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Board has interviewed 3 applicants for RCAC. We have 3 vacancies. Unfortunately, one of the applicants or candidates, Sue Whale, had to withdraw her application. So we're down to Caitlin Stafford or Mike Hitchinson, who the board interviewed tonight, as viable candidates for the 3 vacancies.
Okay.
We've attached a resolution. The board can appoint none or both, or one of the 2, depending on your pleasure. Just simply make a motion.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
make a
Well, I have one point of clarification.
Okay.
So on the draft resolution right now, Mike Henshin's term is expiring in June of 2017, whereas Sue Wales would expire in June of 2019.
Yeah, that could be switched,
Can
right?
we
Yeah, that
switch
would- that could be
Mike with
switched.
Sue?
Yeah, good point.
Just so we're not having to make another appointment in 6 months.
Yep.
Good point. Okay.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion, Town of Superior Resolution Number R-2, Series 2017, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior appointing members to the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee, amended as including Caitlin Stafford, term expires June 2019, and Mike Henshin, term also expires June 2019.
Okay, motion by trustee Hanson.
Second.
Second by trustee Lasis. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. All right, any further business for tonight?
Could I just know what the status is on, we've got some ProStack applications that have been out there for a while, and
We have
are we still waiting on a couple more?
We have at least 15 applicants for various committees, including the new Cultural Arts Committee, ProStack, Planning Commission. So I was going to send something out to the board to see if maybe prior to the ProStack dinner from 5 to 5:30, we could handle a number of these interviews to get them out of the way. And also to ask if you wanted to interview the applicants for the new Cultural Arts Committee that have already been part of the working group, or if you just wanted to make those appointments. So.
Well, I'm just concerned because ProStack can't act right now.
Yeah.
Because
I
we
hear
have
you.
one person missing at a meeting, and they've got a crazy
We're
agenda.
prioritizing the interviews to get.
Get the committees up and
Yes.
working. Okay, well, I'm just concerned about ProStack,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, anything further? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks to everyone for coming tonight.